All right, I think we're live. Welcome to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here and a fun holiday month. December is always so fun but so hectic. But thanks for spending some time here to hang out on a Sunday evening. And I see we have a few people already signed in here. We have Alex, Brian, Kevin, Trading Car Guy, Kyle, BT Aurora, Wheatman. Everyone's checking in from. We got Kevin in Florida. We have Trading Car Guy in Arizona. Kyle in New Jersey, and Sacramento for Wheatman. So thanks for joining in, everyone, so far. Let me go ahead and mute my computer because I forgot to do that. There we go. All right. So anyway, I see. Okay, Eric's from Tulsa. Thanks for joining in, Eric. And see, got a couple more people trickling in here. But anyway, so yeah. Like all the other live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so here. I'm going to give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member. They always get priority answering. Luco says Christmas Eve next week. Yes, we will see about next week's live stream. I'm thinking I will hopefully be able to do something maybe on Saturday night on the 23rd. Christmas Eve's not going to be in the cards for me here to do a Sunday night live stream. So we will see. I'm hoping to be able to do one on the 23rd. The following week, I won't be able to do one for the whole New Year's holiday and stuff because I'm going to be having some friends over. I'll be hosting and stuff. So potentially this could be the last one of the year. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll be able to do one next week. But then that will be the last one here to end out the year. And it's crazy stuff here. It's always fun with a new year turning over. And so I see Wheatman has our first question here. He says, how about the new Mustang? Yeah, well, obviously I'm sure you've seen the review. So that has all my thoughts on the new Mustang. I'm glad I finally got to sample one though. I'd love to try the Dark Horse. But, based on what I, experienced with the automatic GT performance package, I can kind of piece together like the things that I know have changed and the things that I know haven't changed. And I can have a pretty good idea, I think, about a Dark Horse is like already. It's just Mach 1 Tremec with all the other enhancements of the GT I already reviewed. And, maybe a few other suspension tweaks and things, but I'm not expecting any kind of wild difference. 20 more horsepower, you're not going to really feel that, honestly. So, I'm glad I got to sample them. I still am waiting on Ford. They have said they will hopefully send me Mustangs at some point. I told them I want everything. I want the EcoBoost, the GT, and the Dark Horse. We'll see if I get any of them or all of them or somewhere in between. We'll have to wait and see. But Austin says, I just wish they did more with the new Mustang. It's time for a clean sheet redesign. I mean, that would always be nice. The thing is, they have no competition anymore. And it's, it really disincentivizes them to have any kind of innovation if they can literally just churn out the same old, essentially. And everyone's going to just buy it because it wins by default now. So that's the unfortunate thing when you have competitors dropping out, is it just actually ends up being worse for everybody, And so even if you're, a Mustang fan, it's bad news that the Camaro is going away. It's bad news the Challenger is going away, because that's what's driven the insane horsepower wars of the past 15 years was that competition, and we don't have that anymore. So I wouldn't expect much out of the Mustang, to be totally honest. Expect it to be very formulaic. Maybe they'll change the names, like we got Dark Horse instead of Mach 1. Maybe they'll do an SVO or something like that, a little bit out of the ordinary. But I would expect business as usual for this generation Mustang. And then, it'll probably go electric after this one, I'm guessing. But we'll see. They sound like they don't have any kind of horizon for the V8 yet. It sounds like it's going to stick around for the foreseeable future for them. So, we'll see just where it goes. But anyway, let me see. So Newt Media, thanks for joining in to moderate. I appreciate you hanging out here, Zach, as well. And Kyle says, crazy the Camaro officially ended on 12/14. Yeah, and it was kind of weird with the Camaro ending production, because I was following the news of that. I had heard that the convertible version had already quit production, but there was just a bunch of confusion as far as when coupe production was going to end. It was originally supposed to end in January, and then they bumped it back to December. Then other people were like, well, it's going to be extended a couple more weeks maybe. And then it turns out, I think, it just officially ended. And Kyle says there's a photo where the interior folks signed the seat of the last one, red leather SS seat, from what I saw. That's crazy. I haven't seen that photo, but I heard that it actually did end up ending, and that's unfortunate that, I thought that it'd at least go to January, turn out as much inventory as they could, but it sounds like they just were ready to, hang up their hats a little early. Maybe they didn't have any more orders, or they just, for whatever reason, didn't want to keep it going. I don't know. But it's sad. And it's the end of an era. I will cheers that one next week in the weekly update. But yeah, it's a bummer. Jordan Carguy says, I'm sure you're glad you went for the Bullet over an S650. Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be something newer and faster and better in other ways, but for me, the Bullet was more of a sentimental thing. It's a personal connection in addition to just being a good car. So yeah, I didn't even consider any kind of possibility of a next generation Mustang whenever the Bullet was out. It was just, we were already, just in the middle of that generation. I was just excited about that for sure. And the Bullet is definitely not going anywhere as far as, I'm not upgrading to an S650, that's for sure. Zero interest in an S650 personally. Cam Jumps is getting ready to go car shopping. What do you think about the 2019 TLX V6 all-wheel drive versus an Accord 2.0 T Touring? So obviously, there's going to be some preference things there. Do you like a V6? Do you like all-wheel drive? Do you need all-wheel drive? How badly are those perks of the TLX going to, come into play for you? If it's something that's going to really help you out to have the V6 or the all-wheel drive or both, obviously that'll sway you in one direction or the other. Now, putting everything aside and assuming everything's equal for you, I would say Accord is the better handler. The Accord is just so light. You have a lower seating position. It's just the chassis in that generation Accord, and it's transferred over to the new one as well. But it's just so good. It still is hands down my favorite handler of that sport of those general family sedans of that generation. I absolutely love the Accord still. So, and honestly, the interior is better because you had a better infotainment system than the Acura 2019s. They were still. 2019, was that I can't remember if that was the first, if it was the V6, and it wasn't the first year of the new ones. So you're talking last year of the old gen. So yeah, you have the crap infotainment system in that TLX. I mean, it's fine. I reviewed a TLX with that interior. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't care about CarPlay and stuff like that. But the Accord interior is just, it's modern. It is aged better. It's got, honestly, in my opinion, nicer materials with like actual metal knobs in the Accords, especially on the Touring and stuff. I would pretty easily go for Accord personally. Again, I'll come down to those exclusive things of the Acura, whether those are worth it to you. But if you don't care about the V6 and the all-wheel drive, I'd go for the Accord 2.0. And you probably get better fuel economy as well with the Accord. So I think, for me, pretty clear answer is Accord. But again, some of the other stuff could sway you. Nathaniel says, hey, Matt, does the chassis improvements, suspension, and overall rigidity improvements make it feel better than yours? Like, does it feel like an update? Absolutely. And I kind of covered that in my video where it's, the steering is sharper. I love quicker steering. So when you make the steering quicker on any car, it's immediately going to be like ding, 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 like 2 thumbs up for me. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I love the Alfa Romeo Giulia, because it is lightning fast steering, some of the fastest steering in the industry outside of a Ferrari. And it is just like amazing whenever you're carving up a back road in a Giulia for that reason alone. So they quickened up the steering. I love that. That's fantastic. It's not overboard. It doesn't feel like it's too edgy or, too unstable or anything. Like, it feels great with the quicker steering. So I mean, there's some certain tangible things that I'm like, wow, this is a nice improvement. And but I think ride quality, it's about the same to me. The rigidity thing, that's an easy thing. Anytime someone's talking about a new generation or even like a refresh, sometimes they bump up the rigidity. Rigidity is one of those things that's easy to brag about, and it sounds good on paper, and it is objectively better. But I always try and come back to relatable, like daily driver kind of things. Like, are these things you're actually going to notice? Most of the time, I don't think, especially going from one generation to another in a similar kind of car, rigidity improvements of, even 20 or 30% or something, like, most cars, you don't really feel that unless the suspension has really been optimized as well to really take advantage of that. But on normal roads, S650 to me rode identically to my Bullet. Honestly, it just felt a little tighter, and I think, again, that goes back to the steering more so. And I think they made changes to the suspension to keep up with that so that it didn't feel too floaty. So I mean, it definitely felt a little sharper than my car. I don't know if that was the rigidity though. I think it was just the way they tuned the suspension that made it just a little tighter. So it's a little better. But I have to say, I mean, Camaro still is the better platform. Even all these years later, Camaro is just it still, to me, is a little more composed and just is, more of a, you can tell that even like because the S550 platform, was a modified version. They used some parts bin stuff to cobble together the independent rear suspension and stuff. It's much better than the prior generations and stuff, but even that was, compromised in some ways. I still love it. Obviously, I've had 4 S550s, but it's just like it wasn't the ideal setup with the Camaro. They started with a brand new clean sheet, like let's make this amazing with the Alpha platform, and it really shows. And I think that's why the Camaro's always had the better platform and will continue to still to this day, even with Mustang trying to bump things up a little bit. It's still the same S550 for the most part underneath. And so to me, Camaro is still a better handler for sure. But it is a nice update. That's kind of what I said at the bottom line at the end of my video. It's a nice update. If you're not turned off by the screens, I think it's a good upgrade for the average Mustang buyer that just wants something newer, but there's so many other parts that aren't a huge upgrade. But again, my review video goes into all that, so I don't want to get too far behind on comments here, going too off the rails. But yeah, check out the video for all the extra details on my thoughts on that. But Austin says maybe the next gen Charger and Hurricane V6 will force Ford's hand. We'll see. I mean, Ford clearly has a bunch of the EcoBoost V6s on tap ready to go. If all of a sudden Mustang fans want a twin turbo V6, I don't see it happening. Might be some people would be excited about it if you were able to do an all-wheel drive setup or something like that. But it's even the rumored Raptor Mustang that's supposedly coming. Even that they're saying would have the same 5-liter V8. And, that even that wouldn't switch, because I'd be like, that'd be a prime opportunity. If you want to put a Raptor motor in the Mustang, I think that'd be the best way to introduce that, and get people used to a V6 Mustang again. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they'll want to keep up with a V6, with their V8 and maybe boost the power of the V8 a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. I'm still so confused about what to believe about the new Charger, aside from the fact that we know a gas version is now coming and it'll probably be Hurricane, but like how they set that up, what it's really going to be, how it's going to be marketed, how they're going to price it. And there's so many other unknowns still about that for sure. And Trent Garga said, also sad to see the 300C go, such an underrated car. Totally. Yeah. Obviously covered that in the weekly update too. That one is a bummer. I love the 300s, and Chrysler is just, I don't know why they allow themselves to have this giant gap of nothing, and why they let the 300 die on the vine when the Charger was getting so much love, so many cool updates, and 300, they just kind of phoned it in all the way through, and it's just kind of a bummer. But let me see. So Austin said, I just hate Dodge and Chrysler interiors. Always looked low rent to me. I think they're not the best. And yeah, the look isn't the best. But, if you, and we actually talked about this in our Charger interior review a few years ago, there's actually like down by your knee, there's some padding. Like I think if you like get in a Charger interior, at least one of the like decent ones, don't, a rental car one is not going to be great, but like a, nicer one, if you actually touch and feel stuff, it's actually pretty nice feeling, even if it's not the best looking. And the knobs and the switches and obviously all that kind of stuff isn't the best either. But I actually don't think the Charger interior is terrible, to be totally honest. I think if you have experience with it, it's not too bad. It was one of the first introduced CarPlay as well. It was really an early adopter to all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be, those cars will be future proof for a long time, thanks to all that stuff. But certainly, the Mustang was the nicer interior, and even Camaro, I'd argue, probably had a nicer, cooler interior in some ways, so the Dodge definitely wasn't amazing, but I think it's a little better than most people give it credit for, in my opinion, at least. Dave said, our first gen 86 in BRZ is a good buy, hopefully much cheaper than the more powerful second gen. Actually, maybe things have changed in the past few months, but I was curious about this myself, and I looked up on Auto Trader several months ago now, what are older BRZs and 86s going for? And it seems like they've been very stubborn with their pricing and not dropping down. And it's going to come down to, what the price difference means to you, but it's not that much of a difference. I'm seeing like reasonable, like not super low mileage, but like reasonable mile, like I'm talking, 30, 40, 50, even 60,000 mile BRZs and 86s of the last generation, still going for high teens, low 20s. And percentage wise, that's still a big jump up to 30 grand for a new one. But with like new car financing being better rates, comparatively, and then just getting a brand new car and the better new generation and stuff, again, for some people, the difference between 20 and 30 might be huge, but to me, like, that's not a big enough discount. I think the new generation is such a big improvement and fixes so many of the things that I didn't love about the first gen that to me, like, I would have to be paying at least 15 grand or less for a first gen for it to be worth it. Like, it'd have to be half the price because I think it is like so much better now that, if you're spending 20, some of them are even like mid 20s, like some of the nicer BRZs and stuff, especially the refresh version, are like 25. It's like, okay, well, I'm spending 25. I'll spend 5 grand more for a brand new generation version and have so much better stuff. So I think that they're not a good buy right now, unless you can find one for a cheaper price. But if they're all still like wanting 20, 25 grand for the last gen, just spend 5 grand more and get, a base BRZ 86 for it's so much better for 30 grand. That's easily the way to go, in my opinion. Down the road, hopefully there will be a better deal. But because I was kind of like, well, it'd be kind of fun to maybe like, pick up another, 2013 BRZ. Even the old, like first model year BRZs are still like 15 grand at least. Again, some are even higher than that if they're actually, in nice condition. So, unfortunately, they don't seem like a great deal currently. I mean, great if you're owning one because they seem like they're really holding their value well. And maybe they'll never go lower. Maybe it's another one of those cars like the S2000 and stuff where they'll just kind of, appreciate eventually and all that. But I mean, it's wild. When I did my back-to-back drive with my buddy's FRS, the week that I had my GR86, press car, it's like wild how much better. The new generation is so much better. So if you can swing it, I'd totally try and go for a new gen. And Cam Jumps has been seeing a lot about the Polestar 2. How does it compare to the Model 3? I've never driven a Polestar 2. Just on paper, they kind of did a switcheroo this year where now it's rear-wheel drive for the base one. It used to be, or am I getting that mixed up? They switched. They were front-wheel drive for the base one. They went to rear-wheel drive, I believe, and they get a power bump here for this year. I believe there's an opportunity to review one in the press fleet here soon, but the amount of views that my electric car reviews get are so low that, and especially the Volvo stuff, like nobody watches Volvo reviews on my channel, like nobody. So I probably won't ever cover a Polestar, unfortunately. It's probably gonna be a waste of time if I do. I like the Polestar though, from what I know about it and my, I've never even sat in one, to be totally honest, but from what I know on paper and what I've heard from other people and stuff, it seems the Polestar is great. As far as compared to the Model 3, it's going to come down to subjective stuff. You can have CarPlay in the Polestar, you can have gauges in front of you in the Polestar, you have, Volvo safety, Volvo build quality, and I could go, into other stuff with Tesla, but, it's just going to come down to how you feel about all those things and, how you feel about, the way Tesla does things versus Polestar, and the pricing as well. Model 3 is really tough to beat pricing wise. So if you're getting a killer deal, the money can, sway you as well. So it just comes down to, again, how you feel about all that stuff. But it seemed pretty comparable, for the most part. And SOMD says, hey, Matt, I just saw the first Fast and Furious and wondering what was your favorite car from that movie? For me, it was the Supra. Supra, hands down. And that's, I don't know if you can see it with this. Yeah, you can see it. It's over there. Yeah, I still have it. My daughter actually wanted to play with it a couple of months ago and snapped the rear wing off. So I need to glue that back on. So it's currently wingless. But that Supra is the all-time favorite. I would love to, if I hit the lottery someday, I'd love to offer one of these people that has one of those perfect, remade, clones of the movie car. I'd love to, throw a few $100,000 at them for one of those perfect clones and, add it to my collection again if I ever won the lottery someday or something. I love the Supra, but I love all the cars from that first movie. It was so, all of them were just awesome in so many ways. And so, yeah, but I'd say Supra for sure. That Supra rolled up at that red light and raced the Ferrari. Me as a 12-year-old watching that for the first time was like, it was just like the sweetest car ever. So yeah, that's my favorite. But yeah, I love the first Fast and Furious. Still my favorite one of the bunch. But anyway, Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. Sorry for the little wait here. But he says Camry TRD versus Elantra, and which is better? So I'm guessing, again, context always helps here, because it's very, as far as which one I prefer personally, I like a sportier vehicle, and the Elantra N is sportier. It offers a manual. The dual clutch is better than the Camry TRD's, 8-speed regular automatic. Camry TRD comfort is better. So, I mean, if you're interested in just a comfier cruiser, you Camry TRD. Obviously, you have the V6 versus the 4-cylinder. It depends on how you feel about those two things. Personally, though, if you're asking what I personally, with my own biases and things, Elantra N is the way to go, just because of the manual, because it sounds better with the crackles and the pops. It's more fun with the exhaust. It's the better handler. I mean, I haven't tracked a Camry TRD to compare, but I've tracked the Elantra N on the launch event. Fantastic on track. It's just a more dynamic, higher performing car. I mean, I think if you lined them up on a track, I mean, I haven't looked at the lap times to see if anyone's actually done this, but I'm pretty sure if you line them up on a track, and a Elantra N would just leave a Camry TRD for dead. It's just, the chassis, it's got the, more advanced luminous diff in the front. It's just better in all the ways, in my opinion. There's more customization. The interior is higher tech. You have these really aggressive bolstered seats that are great. But it's a smaller class. You're talking a compact car versus, the Camry is kind of like a midsize in a way. So it's just, it's a smaller little car. So, it comes down to how you feel about those types of things. But personally, I would go Elantra N over Camry TRD. And thank you so much again for the super chat, Kevin, as well. And let me see. So Kyle says, Matt, do you think a lot of S550 owners will eventually buy an S650 because that will presumably be the last V8 muscle car? I'm almost certain. And the thing with Mustangs and a lot of cars in general, but especially Mustangs, a lot of people hate the new styling and hate the new, direction of whatever choices Ford has made, in the first year or so. And then eventually everyone caves, everyone loves it, and everyone goes and buys the new one. At least people that have the funds, obviously, to do it. Obviously, there's still going to be a few people that are stubborn and, annoyed or have their own reasons to stick with the S550, like myself, with, just wanting a bullet and wanting that retro interior and all that. So there's going to be some holdouts for sure. But I think that the large majority of people will be like, yes, I want the newest technology. I want to have, the newest looks. I want to, whatever the case might be, have the newest thing and the newest performance, the better performance. There's some things there. I think that one of the things we will see, how long it takes them to crack the ECU, but as of right now, the ECU is still locked, I believe. So that really kills a lot of the aftermarket tuning potential. So I think there's going to be a lot of holdouts, more so than prior generations where it was a jump from one to the other pretty easily. With this, you're going to have a lot of people who are like, well, I can't do as many mods. I can't, go into the engine and tune stuff myself. And so you'll have a lot of people that'll stick with their S550s until someone cracks that ECU. I'm sure someone will eventually, but it's also an extra hurdle, and it's going to be, I'm sure, more expensive, with these locked ECU cars. I don't know how the story's gone with the C8 Corvette, because that's the same kind of scenario, but I'm sure it's more expensive for tunes. It's going to be, a more involved process. There might be some security compromises as far as, usually since there's so much encryption and stuff with these locked ECUs, you start bypassing that stuff. Does that open up other, cans of worms? I don't know. I don't know enough about that whole realm to say anything intelligent, but so I'm just saying there will be, some holdouts there, I think, as a result of that too. We'll see how long that lasts, but I think eventually, there'll be a lot of people that just, it's the last generation, most likely, like you said, and but anything can change too. We will see, how things pan out in the next 10 or 15 years. Because this could be something like we saw in the 70s and the 80s as well, where you have a bunch of downsizing, you have a bunch of, compromised cars for, a decade or two. And then maybe, we're back to the Hellcat days in 20 years if, we figure out climate stuff, or, there's other workarounds and cars aren't an issue anymore. Who knows what can happen. So, it's one of those things, never say never, I think. But I think for a lot of people, they will view it as the last one and hold it and keep it, much like people in the 60s did with their, Mustangs, until, they had all these new exciting ones, the more dynamic ones, I guess higher performing and all that, coming in the 90s and 2000s and into the modern times here. So, but yeah, I think the S650s will be the buy and hold cars for a lot of people in our generation. And maybe we'll get another chance in our later years to, get into some stuff, but, who knows if history will repeat itself or not there. Joe says, what are your favorite style fries and from where? Great question, Joe. So my favorite fries here, it's a Pittsburgh thing. So if you're not from Pittsburgh, it's not going to really resonate. But there's an amusement park here called Kennywood, and they have a French fry stand called the Potato Patch. And they are the best fries in my opinion, that I've ever had. You can get them with cheese and bacon loaded up, and it's like an entire meal in and of itself. And they're like legit, like they take a potato and go and just fry that, and it's all it is. There's no breading on them. There's no nothing. Those are probably my favorite, but that's again a unique Pittsburgh thing. Other stuff, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but as far as like regular like chain fries, I really love Arby's curly fries, and I think there's jokes about how people are just like hate Arby's. I love Arby's. I don't eat it a whole lot because Beth can't stand it either, so I don't get to go there on my own too often. But I love Arby's fries. That's probably one of my favorites from a chain. And I'm sure there's some others that I'm not thinking of currently, but those are probably my top two on the top of my head. Thanks for the fun question, Joe. Nathaniel says, so going over bumps, it doesn't feel less shaky or solid. That's interesting. Also, are you saying the S550 shares loosely with the S450 platform-wise? How? So as far, I don't remember all the specifics as far as S550 because that's stuff that I remember reading 10 years ago. But basically, as far as like over bumps and stuff, yeah, it wasn't a wild difference because S550 was already really good from a rigidity standpoint. They really improved the handling it is a enormous leap over the prior generation, the S197s. So, to me, it was a bigger leap from S197 to S550 as far as rigidity and refinement and all that versus S550 to S650. And then as far as what it shares loosely. So, I think from my recollection, I could be way off here. So someone that's more informed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe S550 used some components from Fusion in the rear suspension for the independent rear suspension part. Obviously, it was beefed up to handle, the rear axle and everything else. So there was definitely a lot of heavy modifications there, but I think some of the bones came from that. And then there was some other stuff too. I can't remember what it got from, but I believe some of the other components that made up S550 were carryover. They kind of took what they could, and they knew they wanted to put in the independent rear suspension, so they threw out the back end. But so they grafted that stuff from other Ford stuff and customized it to make it work better, and then carried over some of the other stuff. I don't think S550 was all new 100%, because there's always going to be some carryovers and some things that they've just learned over the years that they incorporated into the new generation and stuff. But again, I'm not it hasn't been recent enough for me to say in particular exactly what, but yeah, to me, S650 wasn't an enormous leap from a chassis standpoint. But two, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. He says, hey guy, sorry about being late. The karate chop guy was trying to escape Clarkson voice. Some say Matt, oh, okay, I'll try and read in Clarkson's voice. Some say Matt only lets him out for Christmas and that he drinks 0W20 and peas E85. All we know is he's Super Dorks fan. Thanks for joining in, Sue. I always appreciate the fun comments, and thanks for the very generous super chat as well. I really appreciate it. And all right, let me see. Getting back to some other questions here. So Nathaniel says the launcher end, hands down, the Camry TRD is basic, and the face of a Camry is just, wow, subjective, I know. Definitely subjective. Honestly, it seems like people really, it's always the same natural thing again with the new generation. Everyone complains, but says, oh, the last generation was amazing, even though everyone complained about the last generation when that came out too. But regardless, it seems like a lot of people really love the current gen Camry styling. And are really sad to see the changes, for this new one, even though I think it's a great improvement. But yeah, like you said, it's all subjective. But a lot of people hate the Elantra end styling as well. Myself personally, I think the refresh version is really nice and nicely fixes the front end of the Elantra end, because I didn't love all the black on the front of the Elantra end myself. It just feels like it wouldn't age very well because it was matte black, and that's always kind of iffy. So I'm happy to see the changes for the Elantra, and I think a refresh Elantra end, if you're not in a hurry, is definitely the way to go versus the current generation here. Austin says, I wonder what the production numbers are for the BRZ and 86 could be contributing to these values remaining high. Yeah, I don't remember. I know sales figures wise, it definitely obviously trickled off over the years, and yeah, if I had to do a ballpark, at least as far as U.S. Sales and how many are in the States, my guess would be somewhere around between the two cars combined, probably somewhere over 50,000 units total over the whole generation. Because I believe like at its peak, it was like maybe 8 or 9,000 units. I don't think it ever cracked 10,000 units a year. And then you got 10 years, and BRZ always outsold 86, I believe. It's kind of been switched for this generation, it seems. But anyway, yeah, I don't remember exactly. But there's not a ton of them out there, but it's enough. And yeah, I just feel like there's enough of them out there. It shouldn't be that high. I guess people just really are loving them. And Subarus always seem to hold their value pretty well too. So I think there's some of that going on as well. But yeah, it's they're all really staying high. It's kind of crazy. Let me see. Austin says I've been looking into selling my 128i to CarMax, Carvana, KBB Instant Offer, etc. It's crazy the price disparity between all these different companies. Carvana still offers the highest by far. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard how the status has been, with all those different companies. Yeah, I mean, Carvana, I mean, I do have one personal experience, wish this was sponsored, but it's not. But my father-in-law sold his car to Carvana, and it was back in like the COVID days, I believe, or no, it's actually, I think, pre-COVID. But anyway, they just like showed up with a flatbed, handed him a check, and put the car on the flatbed, and there was no questions asked, no, nothing. And, it was really simple and straightforward. I've heard since then some people have had some real issues with titling stuff. When you're buying from, Carvana and things like that. But, it's just, yeah, I've heard, and like what Vroom, I think TFL had a bad experience with them where they never like got a check or something, or it took them forever. I couldn't remember. They have a video talking all about their experiences, but yeah, I'm not sure which one would be the best bet. I don't have any experience with them personally. But best of luck if you're looking into selling it there. And if it's a rare spec too, Austin, if it's if it's a manual, or if it's something that's not a lot of them out there, you might even want to try like bring a trailer or something like that. If it's something desirable like that, you could end up just getting, if you're not in a hurry, then you're okay dealing with a private sale. That could be potentially, I mean, it doesn't hurt. I guess it does hurt if you're trying to be quick about it. But if you're not in a hurry, snap some pictures, throw it up on Bring a Trailer, and I don't believe there's a listing fee. I could be wrong. I think there's just a final value thing. But, if you set the reserve to be above whatever the best offer is, from Carvana, see what happens and, let it play out. I mean, especially like, German stuff like that, the 128i and stuff, there could be some people that really are into whatever certain spec you have. And, maybe you'll get crazy money for it on, auction site. You never know. And Justin says, Matt keeps Arby's in business. Maybe I do. I mean, there's not a ton of them around here anymore, but yeah, they're all good in my mind. Every time I see one of the commercials, there's like a new sandwich or a new meat, and I'm like, oh, I need to get to Arby's again. And it's just, I always miss most of the new stuff that they have, but it all seems delicious to me. But I have a very weak spot for junk food, so probably I'm an easier sell than the average person. Carstack Wood said, did you build those shelves behind you? I did not. They were there when we moved in, and I have no info about them whatsoever. Actually, Jared from Carbuzz was messaging me the other day about trying to get some shelves similar. And I was like, I have no clue about what they're like. They're really thick. They're nice and like long too. So that's why I'm able to have these 118 scale cars on them and stuff. So they're really nice shelves, but unfortunately I have no info for you. I apologize. Austin says, we were worried about you too. The basement is no joke. And Two says it's scary, especially when Kyle tells stories about the karate shop guy. Joe says, any insight on a relatively reliable, fun AMG sports car under 40 grand used, obviously. 2010 C63s aesthetically look really sweet. They are some of the best sounding ones too. I mean, I would just say it comes down to your personality type. If you are, okay with, if you have a higher risk tolerance, basically, it comes down to your risk tolerance. And, I would certainly recommend, regardless of your risk tolerance, to get an extended warranty if you're going to go that route. You're a braver soul than myself if you're going to go for something like that. I personally think it'd be probably a money pit. I'd love to be wrong, and I'm sure there's some people that have good luck with them. Yeah, I think that'd be, it's one of those cars that's such a sweet car, but you just have to know, going into it, it's probably not going to be reliable. And I mean, I think the motors aren't terrible from my memory. It's just always the electronic crap that always gives, glitchy and just dumb little things that are over engineered for, whatever reason they had in 2010 or whatever. And then it ends up biting you in the butt, 10 years later, and that stuff's expensive and all that. But when Broly says, yeah, don't buy a used German car, you essentially buy it twice. that's generally, yeah, the consensus is, if you couldn't afford it new, it's going to be a stretch when you're buying it used, because it's the same kind of, cost, same kind of maintenance stuff, unless you can find an independent, person to work on it that's, a little bit cheaper, but the parts are still going to be expensive and all that. So it's risky. Some people do it and they're happy with their choices, but it just comes down to who you are. And I think a lot of people that do buy used German stuff are people that can work on their own cars, that are confident doing that kind of stuff, and that makes it more affordable if it's just the parts and not the labor. But it's still, I think still gonna be more problematic than buying a used Lexus. Like for example, if you're looking at 2010 C63s, look at an ISF. If you want a reliable V8 powered rear-wheel drive luxury sedan of that period, get an ISF. It's going to be more expensive, probably. I don't know if they're under 40 or not. Might be, though, consider you can get a brand new IS 500 for, 60 or so. Yeah, I don't know. But Lexuses do hold their value, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were holding above that. But if you can get an ISF, that would probably be my alternative if you want something reliable. And ISFs are great. I reviewed one many years ago. If you're curious, you can check out the review. But they're awesome. I'd recommend that, or even a GSF. Those might be under 40 as well. I don't know if you want something even a little bit bigger, but those are great. Don't sound quite as good as the C63, but they're also really, really sweet and reliable. But Austin says, unfortunately, the 128 is an auto. They just don't bring the same price premium. Gotcha. Yeah. That makes it tough. And two said, Matt, if I drop 100, would you do a weekly update sponsored by The Basement? This week's update brought to you by Matt's Basement. Click the join button if you dare. You're hilarious. One of these days, maybe I will do a member video. I will do an exclusive member video giving you a tour of my basement just to clear the air there. And you can you can see the cat litter boxes and the treadmill and the very unexciting basement. So we can actually put a visual to the basement lore. It's a lot less exciting than you're making it sound. Austin says, too, if you drop 1,000, Matt will dish on Doug. I don't know if I think I would have to find a way to refund you if you did that. That would be definitely too much. And we will try and sidestep that one this week, because I don't want to get all that again. But I think hopefully we will try and just keep the peace on. Man, Kyle says he'll match 1,000. Yeah, well, you guys are hilarious. But I'm hoping someday maybe that there will be an opportunity to I don't even know what the correct phrasing is, but I'm hoping there will be an opportunity to just correct some stuff, I guess is the best way to put it, down the road. But it's not a fight that I'm wanting to pick at this point in time, or I don't want to, like I said, I've in the past, I don't want to stir up drama. So I'm happy to just keep that let the sleeping dogs lie, or what's the phrase for that? Let sleeping dogs lie, I think is what it is. Just leave it be. Anyway, Fook, thank you so much for rejoining here to the club. I really appreciate it. And Trent Car Guy said, I'd be happy to contribute once I get a better paying job. No worries at all, Trent Car Guy. I totally understand. Brian says, I like your 18 scale collection in the background. Yeah, thanks. I did do a tour of my model cars many years ago. It was probably actually 10 years ago at this point. They haven't really changed too much. I've added a few, but maybe it could be a fun little member exclusive video if you guys like to see. I can just do a quick little one take on my phone of here's the model cars I have. If you want to see a close-up look at all those, that could be a fun little thing. I'm trying to think of more ways to do more member exclusive videos that aren't enormously labor intensive, and so something like that. If there's any one take quick little videos you guys like to see, definitely leave a comment here or elsewhere and let me know, and I'm be more than happy to do more member exclusive videos. And Steve says, trying to mind 118 scale models of what I've owned is tricky. My stuff is too boring. Or trying to find that's the great thing, is you can have your little car collection. It's a fun way to kind of, I guess, visualize your dream cars. If you're never able to actually afford them someday, it's just nice to have the little models, at least like that wonderful Bugatti Chiron. That's the Lego one, but that will, I'm sure, be a dream car forever. And I don't know if I'll ever even get a chance to drive a Bugatti. That's on my bucket list for sure. But Bruce says, happy holidays, Matt. Thanks for joining in, Bruce. And let me see. Blazer Guy says, what are your thoughts of the Super Crosstrek? I like them a lot. I just did a review on a limited one a couple of months ago. They're great cars. The last generation was also really good. I think the fact that they keep the pricing pretty low on them is really commendable these days. Subaru has one of the lowest transaction prices in the industry. I think that's really refreshing these days with, again, everything just ballooning in price and everyone cutting their base models and jacking up the prices. That was a really big statement when the new Crosstrek came out and it was the same exact price as the old one. That was huge. I think they might have increased the price in the following model year here. I'm not sure, but it's or actually no, they didn't, because they're still in the 2024s, and that was when they introduced it. So yeah, it's the same price as the old one, which is huge. And that's, to me, that stands out, and that's like something that's notable. So I really commend Subaru for their pricing strategy. And I mean, same thing goes for the WRX. I have my complaints with the new WRX. It's not perfect, but it's cheap. Especially the dealers are offering discounts on them and stuff. It's a lot of car for 30 grand still, So same thing with the Crosstrek, it's a lot of good value. It's not the highest tech. It's not the best performance. It's got a lot of, downsides, but for what it is at its price point, I think the Crosstrek's great. And everyone I know has Crosstreks. My dad has a Crosstrek. My mother-in-law has a Crosstrek. Other people that I know in my extended network here have Crosstreks. It's like, it's I'm just surrounded by them. So yeah, they're great cars, especially if you live in the Northeast. I mean, everyone's got Crosstreks. It's crazy. And Brian says he'd be up for that as far as the model car idea. So yeah, maybe I'll do a little member video on that. That'd be fun. And thanks for the idea, Brian. And Trent Carga said, I haven't even bothered. No one makes models of base Lancers or Magnums. Yeah, some of the stuff that's harder to find. Like, I don't even have a Bullet model still. I'd love to have one, even though I have the real thing in the basement. I can just go look, or the garage, I guess. Don't get too excited, too. There's no Bullet in the basement. But, going into the garage there, I can just look at it in life size. But it'd be fun to have a little model. I think one company did a Bullet model, and it was like insanely expensive, and the doors didn't open, the hood didn't open or anything. It was like a couple $100. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to buy that. But yeah, I feel like they don't make as many model cars as they used to. I don't know if that hobby's kind of dying off a little bit or what, or maybe I'm just not following the right things. But Ace of Spades, thanks for joining in. Austin says, I'd like to learn more about the Pittsburgh area. That could be a cool extra member perk. I just learned the original Day of the Dead movie was filmed there. Yeah, that was George Romero's debut here. And yeah, it's so funny. Like I've people that I've talked to that were either, their parents were an extra in it or whatever, that was, it was kind of cool. And okay, that's a fun idea. I appreciate the idea. Trying to think of other cool Pittsburgh things I could show off. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff here. And there's sometimes I contemplate the idea of a personal channel, like a separate channel, just like not getting like super personal into my life, but just like non-car stuff, kind of like honestly like a dumping ground of just like something cool that would be fun to post, but like wouldn't fit on this channel. Just kind of a fun thing to just, throw up stuff like, Pittsburgh video or something like that, or just my thoughts on the best fries, in the country or in Pittsburgh or whatever, just random things like that I could, just do quick little low effort videos on, and this could be a fun, side thing. Assuming I actually had free time to even do that, which is again, sometimes a taller, but for the member stuff, that could be totally a justified thing for sure. So I appreciate the idea. I will have to think about that one some more. I appreciate you have to, it's fun because it like opens up all my creative outlets of like, oh, like there's all these different things I could do, and it's a really fun idea. It'd be also kind of fun. It's kind of hard to do like road rallies and things like that, but it'd be really fun to like someday set up like a member meetup or just a meetup in general for, subscribers and stuff of like, hey, let's drive on all the roads that I used to review, cars and stuff, and then also bundle in a tour of Pittsburgh along with it for people that are out of towners or something. It'd be kind of fun, but it's so hard because it's, I know everyone's from all over the country, but it'd be something, in an ideal world, it'd be fun to do something like that someday. And Trent Carga says, I've considered upgrading to a new ride, but I can't afford one with my current job. Yeah, it's a lot of people, especially with the interest rates these days. It's terrible. I mean, I would definitely say if you don't need to buy a car, or unless you're buying with cash, then, whatever. But as far as if you're financing something and you don't need to buy a car, don't buy a car. Just wait, sit on the sidelines until interest rates get better, or find a car. If there's a car that you want that actually has decent incentives on it, as far as interest rates. I had a prior neighbor who messaged me a couple of weeks ago. They were open to getting a new Hyundai Santa Fe because I think Hyundai was doing it's not the new Santa Fe, but the current generation. They were going to get one of those. I think they were offering like 0% financing or like 1.9 or something like that, and like that'll get people out of their seat to go buy a car again. If you're like, oh wait, like I can actually get a decent interest rate. Obviously, that's just discounted, versus discounting the car, but that gets people excited. Like, wow, I can actually not get screwed on my interest rate. I'm gonna totally go buy that. And like, she went out and bought a Santa Fe as a result of that incentive. So if you can get something like that, then like go for it. But otherwise, if you're getting these 6% rates and up on stuff, like just you're better off just waiting it out until things. Sounds like potentially interest rates could drop next year. So I mean, it's not going to be as cheap as it was a couple of years ago, but hopefully we'll get down to some more reasonable interest rates here soon. And let me see. Fook says, I was looking at CTSVs the other day, and wagons go for almost 2 times the sedans with similar mileage. What are the most price differences between trim models? I don't know. So if you're talking specifically CTS, there's not too many other vehicles like that where it's wildly different. I think what we're seeing in the exotic car market now is that manual, Ferrari 430s, which are a lot more rare. Also, I guess the rarity thing applies to the wagon CTSV. Same deal. The rarity is really what's driving that up. In addition to, again, the niche thing and just, the coolness factor of having something out of the ordinary with the wagon. But manual stuff seems to go. I mean, manual Ferraris are way more valuable than the automatics, especially since the automatics for most of those generations were crap with their first generation dual clutches or single clutch automatic manual things and all that stuff. Same thing with Murcielagos. The manuals were kind of like the ones no one really wanted for a while there, and now they're like the ones everyone wants, and they're going for big bucks again and stuff. So there's some stuff like that. That's really the most instances where I see those giant price differences. And so, yeah, CTSV totally makes sense for that too. I mean, I think so. A buddy of mine, actually, I don't see him very often because he's moved out of state with his job and stuff, but he has the CTSV wagon of, that was at the second generation CTSV. He's got one of those and he drives it a bunch, but I mean, he's like, it's crazy how it's held its value so well. And he's still going to drive the wheels off of it. He doesn't care. He doesn't baby it. It's got a bunch of, paint chips on the front and stuff. He's having fun with it. And I commend him for his awesomeness all the time for driving it as much as he does. I think he's close to 100,000 miles on. Like, he's just like, enjoying it, not caring at all, which is the way to do it. But it's insane how even that would probably go for some pretty good money these days. And Joe says, in regard to the C63, to be honest, I love the aesthetics and the sound. I love something torquey that feels fast, that feels more brutal fast. That car just seems nasty, maybe worth the price to own, especially if values are steady. Yeah, I'm assuming values will be steady. And honestly, again, with everyone being upset about the new C63s and stuff, obviously there was the newer ones that'll probably be the buy and hold ones for a lot of people. But I think, all those V8 power C63s are only going to get more desirable, like anything here, as we get more and more electrified. All the V8 stuff's especially going to really, again, this is not investor advice or anything, but I feel like there isn't a bad V8 buy from an investment standpoint out there. Like, everything's going to appreciate every single thing. I can't think of a bad investment V8 car wise right now, because it's just, everything's going to go up. They're going to be more rare. They're going to be more desirable. More people that wanted that stuff that couldn't afford it back in the day are going to want it eventually. And again, there still could be some depreciation to be had for sure in the next few years, but I feel like that all of that stuff is only going to go up eventually, unless there's some other change, like culturally, where they're just less desirable, or I don't know. But I feel like it's a pretty safe bet. Buy and hold any V8 stuff you can, because I feel like they're all gonna pay off at some point. Austin says, I wish someone made a Fiesta ST model. That'd be fun. Yeah. I feel like someone must have. I feel like I've seen them a long time ago, but I don't know. I'm sure you've looked, but I feel like maybe it was like the small ones and not like actual nice ones that I've seen in the past. And Justin said he'd be interested in an Eclipse channel there of just little things, personal things and stuff. So yeah, maybe that's something someday. In the meantime, I'll start with just doing member videos maybe and seeing how that, because those, I don't have to worry about them messing with the algorithm really, and I don't have to worry about, upsetting anybody with those or having people like, why are you posting this? If it's, I'm posting to the members who obviously all of you are going to, be supportive and obviously are very excited about whatever I post, I'm assuming. So it's a little less risk there. So I think that's a great way to start, just doing them as member exclusives. Isaac says he lives on the north side of Pittsburgh. That's awesome. I grew up on the north side of Pittsburgh as well, right off of Perrysville Avenue, if you know. Obviously, I'm sure you know Perrysville Avenue. So that's where I grew up. The '90s little Matt Moran running around the north side of Pittsburgh. That was where I grew up. It was great. So much fun. And Ace of Spades says Amish country backroad content might be a fun one-off. Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike for me to get out to Amish country, but I did do, if you're curious about Amish country driving a little bit, whenever I did my video with the bullet meetup, I can't remember I think the title was like 50 bullets or something. I did met up for the national like bullet thing that they did, and they met up in the Hershey area, and there's a bunch of Amish stuff we were driving through, covered, wooden covered bridges and all those types of things, and did a little bit of driving there. It was a fun video too if you haven't seen it. That's with Eric the car guy. He was riding passenger with me, and we had a fun day just driving around with a bunch of other bullets and some Amish, country backers there. So that was fun. And Isaac says Tescar is going up Pig Hill and Troy Hill. So I can't remember, is that the one that's like the steepest grade? Because Audi, actually, another fun Pittsburgh fact for anyone who doesn't know, Pittsburgh filmed a commercial showing off Quattro all-wheel drive with the A4. I think it was for the last generation. And this road, I can't remember. I think Rialto is the name of the street for that one. Rialto Street. It's one of the steepest hills, I think, in the country. It's not the steepest, I don't think, but it's one of the steepest out there. It's steeper than San Francisco stuff and all that. And it was like they covered it with. That's another car related thing about Pittsburgh. It could be really cool. Like, it's like, holy crap, look at how insane this hill is. That could be kind of a fun little thing to play around with. Yeah, and Linda says quick videos where we learn a bit more about your Beth would be fun. And yeah, that's something, yeah, definitely for the members. I think that's something I could do. I'm still a little bit like we still, don't get too personal with like we don't ever want to do a family channel or anything like that. But little stuff like it'd be fun to do another way back when we did like a wife tag Q&A video when that was a thing, where Beth and I just had answered a bunch of questions we got off of Instagram that people asked us, and that was kind of a fun thing. So maybe something like that could be another fun member thing. There's so many good ideas I just wish I had the time for. But I want to find, some easier, low effort things that don't take a lot of editing time, that I can just, do a one take thing on my phone, post it up. So yeah, I'm going to try and do more of that stuff here going forward for the members. I really want to expand on the membership thing here this next year. YouTube seems like they're really excited about that from a corporate standpoint, and they're really wanting people to do more membership stuff and all that. But I think that's I really enjoy the little community we have with the membership thing, and so I think I want to definitely try and do more next year with that. And that's one of the things I'll be hopefully discussing here in my year-end video as well, in addition to a few other little ideas I've been kicking around. But let me see. So Linda also says used cars are typically the way to go, and I try to pay cash. Yeah, definitely always save some good money with used stuff, and cash is, it used to be that cash wasn't the best way to go if you're trying to get a good deal, because a lot of dealers, they make a lot of their money off of the financing. And if the financing isn't a bad rate, it's kind of a win-win, because you kind of have a little more leverage with them, with the financing there, and they also can, have an opportunity to make a little bit more, and they're more incentivized to, make the deal happen. Whereas cash, they're like, no, there's no motivation there, because they're not making anything outside of the actual car itself, which oftentimes isn't very much. But yeah, it's these days, it's cash deals is definitely the way to do it right now. And Austin says cars are rarely a good financial decision, but it hasn't stopped me yet. Never bought a car for over 25 grand yet, though, and it was always either cash or very favorable interest rate. Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it for sure. John, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey Matt, is a 2014 to 2019 BMW i8 with low miles worth buying, or just a money pit? I really like the idea of the car with a hybrid setup and all-wheel drive. That's another one where I would say, extended warranty, because it's not even the mileage thing. I think honestly, a lot of these German vehicles get more wonky with low miles. The ones that have either sat on a battery tender or haven't sat on a battery tender, and they get battery drains, phantom drains, weird little electronic things that go wrong. Mechanically, they're fine, and I think I've seen that the ones that are really driven a lot sometimes tend to be a little bit actually better reliability wise, which I guess might kind of be the opposite of what some people would expect. But I think, cars really want to be driven. And yeah, Newt, thanks for chiming in. He says make sure to get a CPO if possible, which is definitely the way to do it. But Newt, I think previously worked at the same BMW dealer that I worked at. So, and he's worked there more recently than I have. So he might have a better experience with the i8 as far as what he's seen, because they weren't out by the time I quit working there. So I don't have any experience with the i8s as far as how often they were in for service and things like that. But the one I reviewed was great. I really like the i8. I think it's really a cool vehicle that I think has kind of aged well from a technology standpoint, and it was very forward thinking. And I think that it's a shame that it's gone away, because I think there's some appeal to that idea even more now than there was back then. But I would say, yeah, extended warranty. I believe that motor that's in it is this. I think it's the same one that they use. Is it the B48? Maybe Newt knows better, or John, maybe you'll know better. But I mean, modern BMW motors are pretty solid. So that's why I'm not really worried about mileage with, any modern BMW. It's mostly just the electronics, and that's the bottom line. So if you're looking at one, my recommendation would be check out the Carfax as well. In addition to obviously, CPO, extended warranty as long as you can. But beyond that, look at the Carfax. If they're bringing it in for, electrical system checked, battery replaced, if you're seeing a bunch of that stuff more frequently than normal, that's the cars that I would stay away from, because then that tells me there was an electrical glitch. There was some goofy thing they kept bringing it in for, and, little dumb things that, the car is not going to leave you stranded on the side of the road, hopefully. But, it could have the alarm go off in the middle of the night and be a pain in the butt for, reasons like that, so that's the only kind of stuff that would kind of, make me a little iffy. But it is a really unique car. And with the i8, that's one of those cars where there really isn't a great alternative that is reliable necessarily, as far as other brands. So it's like, if you want an i8, there's really no substitute. So there's nowhere else to really go to really recommend you anything else. That's why in a case like that, if you want that very specific, very niche kind of, package, it might be more worth the risk than something else where you could get something comparable. If there's no comparable car, obviously, then, it's kind of one of those things I'd probably, take the leap if it's something that, again, you're comfortable with. If your risk tolerance lines up with it, you're not, worried about having a car that's going to be 100% reliable all the time. It's just, everyone's comfort level is different. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Newt also says, I've definitely seen more electrical issues with BMWs than mechanical. Yeah, and I think that's any German car in general, and even European in general. I'm not even picking on the Germans. Volvo is the same deal. I have the same recommendation for a Volvo. Mechanically, they're maybe a little more iffy than the Germans, I'd say, but as far as same deal of like stuff being over-engineered, having more electrical issues, although Volvo seem to also have some build quality issues too sometimes, but so I don't think BMW is the most unreliable or anything, but I think, just you gotta watch out for the electrical stuff. But hopefully that helps you. And thanks so much again, John, for the super chat. If you have any other follow-up questions, I'll try and keep an eye out for that as well. And feel free to always message me if you want to, have any other follow-up questions. I'll be more than happy to. Same, you can also reach out to Newt there if you want. I'm sure got some great info. And there's also, I'm sure people have done long-term videos on i8s and stuff that, will be better sources of information. Forums are always a great resource. Check out an i8 forum or a BMW forum. I'm sure even the Bimmer forums probably has an i8 subsection. People can give you a really good lowdown of, what's the common pitfalls to look out for with i8s and things like that. Facebook groups, if there's, one for an i8, ownership group, those are always really valuable information as well. So I try and get some research, from there and see, if there's some general consensus about, if there's a safe way to do it or a safer way to do it. That'll probably be your best bet. But thanks so much again for the super chat. Let me see. Trying to find my place here. So Ludicrous Fool says, I actually got an appraisal for my car today, a 2018 Volkswagen Golf GTI. Came out to 21 to 23 because it was clean throughout, relatively low mileage and bone stock. That's nice. I might be wrong about this as well, but it seems like Mark 7s have kind of also held their value a little bit better recently. Because I think, again, there's some people that are not crazy about the Mark 8s. And so there's a little more of, that buy and hold mentality with the Mark 7s versus like Mark 6 to Mark 7, where everyone kind of universally agreed it was a better upgrade in most ways. I think there's less of that for Mark 7 and Mark 8. So I think that, there's hopefully it helps you out with the values there. So that's good to hear that it's holding up well for you there as far as pricing. And good luck with the sale if you do decide to sell it. And Austin asking about the appraisal there. Two says, Matt started a second channel years ago. That's where he dropped his Tug diss track. You do better take it down, not because of drama, because they heard people crying in the basement. Yikes. Yeah, I mean, I actually do have a second channel that I haven't posted to in years called The Vintage Car Fan, where I just did walkarounds of classic cars. It's linked on the channel page here on this channel under my like featured channels there. You can, there's a link to it there if you're curious. It was just me doing voiceovers of walkarounds of classic cars. Not very exciting, but yeah, I wanted to do the vintage stuff separate because I knew there was less appetite for that on this channel. And so I did that for a few years, just didn't have time to keep up with it. And, didn't have time to go to as many car shows as the years went on. And so that channel has just languished since then. But that was my one attempt. But like I said, if I had more time, I'd definitely be open to probably doing some stuff. It wouldn't be posted very frequently, but I'd do some stuff probably on a personal channel, just again, a dumping ground or something. But Ludacris says that CarMax dealership, but I also checked Kelly Blue Book and they gave out 22 to 24 value range as well. So that's pretty good pricing there. I'm glad it's doing well. Saturday Jones says the V8 Q70 is really rare. I'm seeing a 2018 for 56 grand on Google. Not a lot on the market, and I look every couple of months. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because usually a lot of like some of those things that are rare, it seems like they still don't end up holding their value very well. Like an Acura, I think it's the RLX, right? Is like the big one that like very few people bought, and then it just kind of withered away, or maybe it's just the RL. I can't remember, but it's interesting. The Q70s are actually a little more valuable. It's been, I don't know how many years since I've seen a Q70 in the wild, but yeah, it's a car I'd love to review because I remember when they came out and they seemed, pretty impressive, and the advertisements and stuff for them were kind of cool, and just couldn't compete with the other stuff out there in those days. It's unfortunate. Two says that's not his new office at a new house. If you see his old weekly update, that was his basement. And Newt says wife tag videos, that was forever ago. Yeah, that was probably at this point, 9 years ago or something like that, probably. Because I think it was when we just moved into our first house, which I think was 2015. So coming up on 9 years here, probably. It's time flies. Ludacris Fool says, not sure what your thoughts, but I'm doubtful full electrification is ultimately going to happen anytime in the next few decades, if at all. The power grid just doesn't have the capacity to support it. Yeah, and I don't really want to get into the electric thing because it's unfortunately been so politicized, and I don't want to give too many of my own personal views there because I just try and stay so neutral as possible with all that stuff. So I'm not going to comment on that too much, but I do cover in the weekly updates. We are seeing a lot of new chargers coming online. Mercedes just announced, they already started building their new charging stations. They got hundreds more coming next year. We got new chargers popping up left and right really quickly, really nice ones that have roofs covering them and little convenience stores attached and all that kind of stuff. So I think the money is coming in, and it's not slowing down. It seems like they are still forging ahead, and they are putting up a ton of chargers. And I think that it's going to happen. How fast it happens, obviously, everyone's got their very ambitious dreams and timelines, and we will see if the timeline works out. But I think that unless there's other developments that if things change, or if there's other issues that crop up that people are put off by, then there could be certainly some setbacks. But I think that long term, if nothing else, I think electrification will be a bridge to get us to hydrogen or something else that could be ultimately more sustainable for a longer period of time. But battery tech is just advancing so fast that I feel like the grid's not even going to really matter much eventually because of, it's still going to be an important component. I think that's a component they are also beefing up because power companies don't want to miss out on all the money. They're going to be the new oil, if this actually plays out in their favor, so they're going to want to make sure they can meet up with the demand. And it'll be incentivized for them to do that, but I think it's just something that we will see, how it plays out. But with these batteries, I was just talking in the weekly update this week, the RNX Energy battery, they already have a 600-mile battery. They popped into an IX, did 608 miles on a single charge. It's just getting that stuff to a commercialized level and getting it obviously to an affordable level. I have no clue, what their battery pack's going to cost when they put it in, BMWs or whatever they put it into. But like, the tech is happening fast. When you got money pouring in, like it's pouring in billions and billions and billions of dollars, like that's how stuff happens. And we've seen this stuff with the tech sector and how smartphones have just leapfrogged and just, evolved so fast because all of a sudden everyone had one, everyone wanted one. And something that took, a decade to go, you had Nokia candy bar style phones for a decade and no innovation, no nothing. And then Apple comes in and drops that. And then all of a sudden, boom, we have this explosion and this new high-tech age that just changed culture, changed life as we know it, and changed so many things, and that's, those types of things. When you start pouring money into stuff, the advancements you can make are incredible. So I feel like, we will see, but I'm optimistic personally, just based on the stuff that I've seen in the news that I've reported on already in the weekly updates. I think there's some good progress being made, but yeah, everything is still totally up in the air as well. And we'll see again how things actually, finally play out. Let me see. So, where was I? He also adds, I don't think people should be forced into going electric if they don't want to. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing is there's no forcing, it's no one has said that you're not allowed to have a used car. There's no one talking about that. There's, at least that I've seen, 2035 for some brands for new stuff, especially here in the States. There's nothing stopping you from going to another brand that isn't doing that. Honda, I think, says 2040 for fully electric. I mean, so there's going to be other alternatives for a long time. And then, in 2030, you get a 2034 brand new whatever that's gas powered. I mean, with how reliable cars are, you can keep that until 2050 at least, and 2050, I mean, we're all going to be probably, at least me, I'll be 60 years old at that point. Like, I'll just keep on driving my Bullet or whatever, and I don't need to have the brand newest whatever in 2050 at that point anyway. So, we'll see. But, obviously, yes, for my daughter and stuff, it'd be great for her to be able to have something fun and crazy, in the 2040s that's gas powered. We'll see what happens, I think there's a lot of things that are still possible in all directions. And I think it's anyone's game still at this point. If someone come up with a better technology that, helps us to get to where we need to get, with all of, the country's goals and the world's goals, I think there's all kinds of ways we can do that. It doesn't have to be one path, but it certainly seems right now like the electrification path is definitely the one that's the front runner for now. But Isaac says Canton Avenue in Beachview is the steepest in the country. Really? Okay, I didn't know it was actually the steepest, and we're out into the commercials. Rialto is Pig Hill. It's the third steepest in Pittsburgh. Interesting. So Canton is the steepest in the country. All right. Well, that definitely is worth a video. That would actually be a video potentially for even this channel, like the main, like not just didn't have to be a member exclusive thing. I feel like that's interesting enough that could actually be like a fun vlog just to do in the Bullet or something. But thanks for the info. I didn't realize it was actually the steepest. That's wild. That'd be fun to do. Let me see. So Trent Garga says the i8 is definitely one of the more interesting designs BMW has come up with. Definitely can't confuse it for anything else. Definitely. Steve says, I'm going to knock on wood with my Volvo. I'm planning to put 20,000-ish miles per year on it. I bought it on 1031 and already have 2,700 miles on my V60. And I mean, I think those are also kind of luck of the draw. Some people, they run them for decades, and other people, I mean, even with the modern ones, I've seen some people have some good luck with them. Other people have bad luck with them, so it just comes down to luck of the draw with some of that stuff. But best of luck to you, Steve. The V60s are awesome. Kudos to you for buying one of the last Volvo wagons. Also another potential collectible at some point down the road, in my opinion, at least, just because that's not going to be a thing anymore. Volvo wagons are going away, sadly, and that's going to be a bummer. So kudos to you for getting one. And Ludacris says, I should also note my GTI is the Autobahn trim, which is fully loaded. That definitely is going to help with the desirability, I'm sure. Nude says, I traded my 17 GTI Sport in on a BRZ back in 2021 with 20,000 miles, and I got 25 and a half out of it for comparison. Nice. Yeah, that's so I guess in 2021, was that before prices crashed or was that after? I can't remember as far as, because values kind of did a flip flop there. I can't remember when it was that exactly that happened, but yeah, I'm glad you got good money for yours too. It's good to see the GTIs are holding their values well, because that's another one. Like, I don't know if I'd buy a GTI and keep it forever, because same kind of caveat there with the, electrical stuff. And there's, the running jokes about GTIs having a ton of, warning lights on the dash and stuff all the time. So that's another one I'm glad to see they're holding their value, because I honestly would have assumed it would have dropped super fast, like a, 3 Series or something like that. With those, it's amazing. I was just looking the other day. You can get like a 330i, like the current generation 330, like a 2020 or something like that, for like mid 20s. It's crazy how cheap, like they just drop so fast. It's wild to me. And two says, on a serious note, an idea for a video series, top 5 cars you didn't know existed in Japan or Europe. That'd be fun. List videos are very popular, and I always go back and forth about, like, should I chase the trend, or should I, or has someone already done that a million times over, and it's just kind of, video fodder in a way that's not like a valuable contribution to the greater, car community. I don't know, but it seems like that kind of stuff is very popular. So, I mean, that's something, even like people I know in the past have said, like, they wanted me to like a ranking video of like which bullet is the best out of all the generations, or like, just top 5 lists in general about, top 5 sports cars this year, top 5, whatever. And, the other thing I'll say about ranking stuff, with the top 5, if you're saying like things that people didn't know existed, like that kind of stuff is, I think more interesting. But whenever people make top videos about, these are my top favorite vehicles of 2024 or whatever, like things like that. I mean, if you use the caveat of like, this is my favorite, your mileage will vary, then that's one thing. But like I see so many YouTubers, like, these are the best cars, and like, here's my rating scale, and here's this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of people that do this. I know, there's one that probably comes to mind for some people, but there's a lot of people that do the same kind of thing. And like, to me, it's just like, everyone likes something different. So I cannot say these are the best cars you can buy or something like that, because they might be the worst cars for you to buy personally. And it just seems like a very me-centered approach to be like, here's the best things, and what I think is the best thing. And it's just like my way or the highway kind of thinking. And it's like, no, like, I don't have all the answers. What I like doesn't have to be what you like. And that's the great thing about the car reviewing world too. It's so funny how there's been times where I've watched a review by one of my buddies that do great videos, and I love their stuff, but they'll say something, I'm like, I do not agree with that. We had very different experiences. And that's why it's so good to get different opinions, because I don't, you can't just take what I say all the time as like being 100% consistent. For example, my Z Nismo video, that car handled terribly with the tire setup that at least this one had, or I don't know what the deal was with that, but I had a bad experience with the Z Nismo. Other people are still praising it up and down. I think it's the greatest thing ever, and like, more power to them. And maybe it is the greatest thing ever, and I got a bad apple, but and there's other times where people are like, oh, this car was garbage. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This car was great. And so, that's the great thing about having multiple opinions is, there's room for other thoughts and other things, and the openness that, there's not always one right answer. You can have a lot of different right answers in this, at least as far as cars goes, in my opinion. So that's why I kind of shy away from ranking stuff and rating stuff, because to me, I don't think that actually is helpful to people. It just tells you what I like, which I still try and make this channel less about me and more about helping people find cars and being a helpful resource to people. I know in the past it has been more personal, and I'm going to try and do more personal stuff just to build more of a personal connection, but I don't want it to be like me just saying like, here's the best stuff and trying to act like I know it all when I don't. But Austin says, my friend's Tesla Model Y battery failed at 24,000 miles. He had it replaced under warranty, but they couldn't guarantee it wouldn't fail again. Apparently it's a design defect. Interesting. I haven't heard about too many Teslas failing with battery packs early on. And I'm not sure the design defect with the battery. That's the first that I've heard about that in the Model Ys. And obviously they've been out for a while. I'm not in that world, so totally could be a common complaint. But I mean, I've seen a lot. One of the Facebook pages I love is the Mileage Impossible page. I've talked about it in the past on this live stream before, but they are it's fascinating to see people post up like, here's my odometer, like, and it's amazing the cars that you wouldn't expect to be high mileage that are. And it's really a good source of information for people that are really looking at, is this thing going to last me 500,000 miles? Like, it could, because this guy just did it, and it's kind of cool. And I've been seeing more and more Teslas, people being like, yeah, I'm on my original battery, or I did a battery replacement under warranty right before the warranty was up, and then but there's a lot of them on original batteries that are still saying like 90% capacity at like 250,000 miles. A lot of these people that do Uber and stuff in their Teslas, the batteries are really holding up well. So it really comes down to how you treat the battery. That's the one thing a lot of people don't realize if you're not in the EV world, is it really comes down to how you treat the battery. If you trash your battery, then yes, you could have one of those horror story clickbait videos of, oh, my battery just was worthless in 5 miles. And you can do that if you just trash your battery. It's not hard to do, really. I mean, they try and put safeguards in place that you can't do that as much, but if you're running your battery below 5% all the time, or if you're actually running out the battery all the way, like, that's horrible for battery. If you're charging it to 100% all the time, that's going to kill your life of your battery really fast. With our Mach-E, we charge it to 90%, and it never goes past there unless we're going on a road trip and I know I'm going to need all the range I can get. And even then, you want to discharge it from that 100% state within 24 hours or so that it's not holding back, because that also hurts the battery health. I mean, I'm not keeping the Mach-E, where it's just a lease, so we're going to get rid of it in a couple of years, but I still want to do that for the next owner, just to be nice, I guess. But I don't need to have 100% every day, because we don't drive that thing more than 30 miles a day typically. So it's but so there's just some things you need to look out for. So if I mean, I have no clue about your friend. I'm sure some people just have genuine bad luck and they do all the right things and still get screwed. And those are the people I feel the worst about. But some of these people that are just have no clue, have done no research about what it's like to own an EV, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Some of these people are just going to have bad experiences because they just don't know. I mean, there's so many people that, don't understand the charging infrastructure, don't understand any of that stuff. And then they go buy an EV and they're like, oh, this is terrible. I have nowhere to plug it in. Whatever the case is, there's a lot of that happens. And so, I think education is the number one thing for batteries. But I mean, certainly there's a lot of pitfalls with batteries. And there's some people are going to have issues, and the replacements aren't cheap. Hopefully that improves down the road. But there's lots of concerns there. Insurance rates are sky high for them because of all that stuff. There's a lot of things. So, I mean, there's a lot of downsides. I'm not going to deny that, but I think that a lot of stuff is people clinging on to fringe cases that aren't the norm, and really trying to undermine the entire EV thing as a result. And I don't usually think that's a fair characterization of EVs in general, because I've seen how reliable they are and how durable they can be. Tesla has really shown us that in the past 10 years. They're really, those Model S's especially, I mean, those things they seem like they're pretty much tanks, from at least my experience of what I've seen from them. They seem like they're really solid. Maybe the newer stuff's different though. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. Let me see. Evolving says, happy Sunday. Did you happen to see the 2019 Bullet that sold on Cars and Bids last week for $43,500? I did not. Don't follow Cars and Bids myself, but that's interesting, because I feel like they were kind of dropping down a little bit, but it's nice to hear if maybe, I don't know, the mileage and the condition on that one, but good to hear that maybe they're going back up in price a little bit. That'd be nice to see. Trunk Cargo said, if the construction and constant projects around me is any indication, I'm going to end up in discount Los Angeles before long. Mike says, Matt, GM now having showed a total of 6 electric SUVs and no Corvette SUV, guessing it'll be gas then when it does show up. That's still kind of up in the air, because there's been different reports saying complete opposite things. There's been reports of it's going to be a Macan fighter, or like a Taycan fighter. They're going to be a sedan version, an SUV version. They're both going to be very dynamic. Porsche competitors that are EVs. And then there's been rumors, I think Motor Trend was saying there's going to be a V8 version of the Corvette SUV and kind of just be a regular traditional Cayenne competitor. I still have no clue what to believe there. Motor Trend, typically they have in the past been well sourced, but they've really been out there, and they claim the Charger's still going to get a V8, which I don't think there's any chance that's happening. They've been making some weird claims recently that I'm like, I don't know if this is just really clickbait at this point for them or what, but there's some stuff that really seems like they're kind of, I don't know if they're just putting out stuff people want to hear or what, but I don't know. I would love to see, a V8 fire breathing Corvette SUV. That'd be awesome. But I'm more inclined to think it's going to be electric whenever it does happen. Because the thing to keep in mind too is all the stuff we're seeing now is on Ultium, which has been in the works for a while. The Corvette SUV was always going to be next generation, like the evolution of that. I can't remember what the code name for the platform that one report was talking about, but it's going to be a next generation thing that's going to have really impressive charging speeds and really just be a very stout, basically reverse engineered Taycan was kind of the consensus that I remember reading from the one report. So that kind of stuff takes time. I think what I've heard is 2027 at the earliest for the Corvette SUV, regardless of what it ends up being powered by. So I think we still have a lot of time. I know Cadillac's being bizarre with showing us this 2026 Vistic this past week. But I don't think for the Corvette SUV, I think they're going to play that one closer to the chest, and I don't think we'll see anything for a while. One interesting thing, though, in the Blazer EV presentation last week, whenever they were, just flipping through the slides there, one of the things they mentioned on one of the slides was Corvette story continues next year. Now, I'm assuming that just means ZR1. I wouldn't expect anything outside of that, but it was interesting they kind of just dropped that little teaser that we will see something new, from Corvette next year, it sounds like. So, stay tuned for that, but I'm assuming it'll just be, ZR1, I'm sure. But maybe they'll surprise us and show some kind of cool concept or something, who knows, as far as, SUV stuff. Wheatman says, can't wait to see a video on the manual Z4. Me as well. We will see if that ever happens. BMW doesn't work with me, so hopefully some owner offers theirs at some point, but it's probably gonna be a long wait, unfortunately, for that one. Yeah, that'd be a fun one for sure. I'll be very excited to review that someday if I ever get a chance. And Evolving says, what car, if any, would you trade the Bullet for? The Bullet is still my ultimate. So really the only world, I mean, there's a few real hypotheticals. If Ford angered me to the point where I really just out of spite wanted to get rid of it, but even so, I love the Bullet so much that I feel like I feel like I'd always just keep it, no matter what. So the only thing that would really force me to get something else would be if financial situations just dictated that I had to get rid of it, just for money reasons, since it is so valuable. And if that were the case, and I was trying to go for something more affordable, then I would go for something, that's, less performing. The first thing, I think what I would get if I didn't have a Bullet, or if for some reason the Bullet didn't exist in some other hypothetical world, I would probably be driving a GR86. I love the GR86. I really want a car with a back seat so I can still take my daughter around while she, needs to have a back seat. I need something with a backseat. Otherwise, I'd probably say Supra, Super manual, if we're talking similar price to the Bullet. But since Supra doesn't have a backseat, and because the GR86 is most of the same fun as Supra for half the price, essentially, GR86 is probably what I would drive right now if it wasn't the Bullet. And there's been times, I had a GR86 for a week, and I really, I stood in the garage and stared at the Bullet for a minute, I was really torn. I came, not, I wouldn't say super close, but I came fairly close to swapping the Bullet for a GR86 just because I love that car that much, and the sentimental thing of having the old BRZ, but it's just the Bullet still fits exactly what I need and want out of a personal car, because it's a car that I don't get to drive very often because I have all the press cars. So when I do drive it, it's an event. It's a loud V8. It's exciting, but yet it's still comfortable, cruising around, just doing errands, going to get, groceries and stuff. It's comfortable. It doesn't beat me up. I don't feel like I'm suffering in a race car. So it's comfy. It can be a couch when I want it to be because it has the MagnaRide dampers. I can have it be nice and quiet if I'm not in the mood for, crazy loud exhaust. If I'm trying to sneak out while, our daughter's sleeping or something, I don't have to wake the neighborhood with some crazy straight pipe thing. It's, having the active exhaust has been so nice. One of my favorite features of that car. The comfort of it, the rear wheel drive, the manual, it's just all things that aren't very common these days. So it's always a treat driving that car. And so, obviously the GR86 has many of those same qualities, but, there's no active exhaust, there's no adaptive dampers, less comfort, and I've just gotten used to those creature comforts here with all the S550s I've had that, I would miss a lot of that stuff if I went down to GR86. So that was one of the reasons ultimately why I didn't swap it. But if I wanted to do something cheaper, if I wanted to save money for, whatever reason, or I needed to, downgrade to something cheaper and cash out on all the equity in the Bullet, I think GR86, if I didn't go cheaper, which still could be an option as well, but if I wanted to, still have something new-ish and, at that price point, GR86 is definitely what I would get. I love those things so much. And Austin says, I had a 2010 GTI. A mouse ate the wiring harness, so the car always thought the windshield wiper fluid reservoir was empty. It was very random. That's unfortunate. At least at that point, it wasn't Volkswagen's fault. It was a mouse, but still. Oh, and sorry, I missed. There's a super chat here, and Kyle gifted 5 memberships. Thanks so much, Kyle, for gifting those memberships. It's really generous of you. And Nick, thank you so much for the super chat. Apologies for the wait here. But he says, hi, Matt. I'm in the market for another S550. I really like the Bullet, but everyone says the Tremec and the Mach 1 makes the car way better. Thoughts? I would agree with everyone else. And if you saw, I did a Mach 1 review just a couple of months ago. And if I wasn't sentimental about the Bullet, as far as, I love the color, I love the movie connection, the trim, the way they did all that, the Mach 1 is the better car. And if I had no sentimental attachments to the Bullet, I would have totally upgraded for a Mach 1. It is better. It's the transmission is better. And not only just the transmission, but also the gearing. They changed the gearing with the, you get the different gearing with the Tremec, and it's a little shorter. Now, it's not wildly different. I still think ultimately gearing wise, the regular S550 GTs, either with the 373s pre-refresh or even the 355s, like I had on my regular GTs without the performance package, those actually still had shorter gearing and actually felt a little punchier in the lower RPMs than even the Bullet does, and even the Mach 1, in my opinion. So I think that was really a sweet spot with the pre-2018s. And then whenever they did the fuel economy years in 2018, it kind of, I love the Bullet still, but I do wish the gearing was a little shorter sometimes. The Tremec, the Tremec fixes that with the Mach 1 a little bit. So if you want something that's, newer than a 2015 to 2017, again, if you're, in the market for another S550 and you want something newer, yes, I think Mach 1 is the solution. I think that is the way to go. Now, I don't know what the price premium between Mach 1 and Bullet is, probably a little bit of a premium there. So that'll come down to, again, how badly you dislike the MT82. I have really no complaints outside of the gearing itself. The shifter's been fine. It's, sometimes a little clunky. It doesn't feel amazing compared to the better, really good manual transmissions that we've seen in other cars, the Hondas and stuff like that. But, it's good enough. It's still a manual experience, which, is rare these days. You don't want to, knock something that's, just a gift for enthusiasts, essentially. But Mach 1 is definitely better. The Tremec's great. And if you haven't seen my Mach 1 review, you can watch me, glow over how amazing the Tremec is in that video, but it really is a ton of fun. Mach 1, highly recommend. Great car, great savings over the S650 as well, like I talked about in my S650 review. It's I would not get an S650, even if you do like the new screens. I would say save yourself 10 grand and get a Mach 1, and it's going to be way better. And honestly, if you're comparing it to Dark Horse, you'll save more than 10 grand, and it's still most of the same fun. So I think Mach 1 is a great buy right now. They don't seem to have really ballooned in price or anything. They're still just kind of doing their usual depreciation thing as everyone upgrades into Dark Horses. A lot of those, people are dumping their Mach 1. So I think it's giving you some nice appreciation there, but that won't last for very long. I think you'll see there's some staying value there, like the Bullets, which are still hovering in the, mid to low 40s when it was a 50 grand car, 5 years ago. They're really holding their value well. And I think Mach 1 is going to be the same kind of story, especially with the Tremec being even more desirable. So I think it's a solid buy. And thanks so much for the super chat. And let me get back to the other member questions here. So where was I? So thanks, Trent Car Guy, for answering about the question there from Racing for the Sun. So yeah, I try and get to non-member questions if I have time towards the end there. That's usually, if you're a non-member and you want to ask a question, if you wait towards the end of the video, that's usually the best time, where I usually caught up on member questions at that point. Let me see. So Lucas Full says, my GTI has been really great for me in the past 5 years I've had it. Granted, I've only put 27,000 miles on it, but I haven't had any issues besides sometimes replacing tires and windshield wipers. That's great. I'm glad you had great luck with it. And that's, especially, I think the Mark 7s have been a little more solid typically than prior gens, but I'm glad to hear that it's held up well for you. And it really is luck of the draw. Some people have horrible experiences. I've heard horror stories about Mark 7s. other people, yeah, they're really solid cars, so it's great. And also said the former has more to do with my roads having so many potholes. Yeah, I can hear you on that one. That's a struggle around here as well. Um, so let me see. Um, yeah, thanks, Nate, for also chiming in there on the question structure. Two says, so I think I worded it wrong. More like these 5 interesting cars that you can only get in Japan or Europe. Yeah, that would be totally, sorry for the going on the tangent too, but yeah, like an interesting car kind of highlight would be great. And that's kind of a fun thing. I'm sure there's probably people who've already done this, but like for 2024, we're gonna have the R34 GTR starting to become legal, and that'd be like the top one of like top stuff to, or most interesting stuff to you can import now for 2024. Those types of things are definitely some opportunity videos if no one else has done those, that could be good videos. And that's is like pretty low effort stuff, so that's something I'd like to do, and that's a great idea and a great suggestion too. And I think that could be a way. We will see. It looks like my schedule for this winter is shaping up to still be pretty busy from a car review standpoint. But if I have some content gaps there, where I have a few weeks where I can put in some more experimental videos, that could be a top idea. So I appreciate that too, because that'd be a very easy video for me to make, to still and hopefully be something that has some staying power for people and would be helpful for some people. So I appreciate the suggestion there. And to also say they don't even have to be performance cars. Yeah, just interesting stuff for sure. Like all the K trucks that are so cool that I think it'd be a fun little video to highlight some of those too. And let me see. Dom says, "Hey Matt, I hope all is well. Just joining the chat. You're one of the first to mention that the NSX is the future, and Ferrari just released the 296. What do you think?" Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, Dom. Yeah, I mean, when the NSX came out, I'm sure I wasn't the only person that mentioned that, but it's just that, yeah, it was the electrified front end with the power in the rear there. We're seeing that with E-Ray now with Corvette as well, and Ferrari with 296. I mean, everyone's following that path, and I think the NSX unfortunately was just a car that was too ahead of its time. And there's a lot of tragic cases like that. GM's had several of those as well. I mean, look at Volt and stuff like that were just too early. I mean, there's still a cult following for Volt, but it's not. It was just not timed well, and it's unfortunate. Things like that. NSX is the same one. There's a couple others recently I was thinking of where it just was like, man, that was a brilliant idea that was just 10 years too soon. And yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, NSX is great, and it's I think it makes a lot of sense to have the electrified front ends and stuff. It gives you the best of both worlds of having the low speed electrified stuff, and then turn on the gas engine when you want to have a good time. I think it's kind of the best of both worlds in a lot of ways. And Austin says he wants to replace his Y with a Model X because it has newer battery chemistry. He definitely hasn't soured on Tesla or electric cars in general. I just thought it was interesting to mention. Yeah, that's interesting, and it's really important to highlight that stuff because it doesn't. I don't ever want to portray EVs as being a one-sided thing either. There's certainly, like anything else, there's two sides. There's downsides and positives, both ways. I will say that just as a little, I'm sure your friend already knows about the Model X and their downfalls as well, but they also have their reliability issues. I believe as far as all the Teslas are concerned, the Model X is the one that gets the worst reliability scores, mostly for those rear Falcon doors that are so problematic. But Model X's aren't the best either. If he's looking to replace with a Model X, though, I'm not sure where your friend's located, but my buddy at Harrison Auto Sales, where I do my car reviews, he's been sitting on a Model X forever that no one wants. So I don't know if your buddy's what his price point is and what he's looking for exactly, but Harrison Auto Sales, I believe they still have it. It's been sitting there for a while. I'm sure they'd be willing to deal on it a little bit if your friend's interested in a Model X. Because he's like, no one wants this thing, and he's just been trying to sell it, and it hasn't had much luck. But let me see. So, where was I? So SOMD says, "Hey Matt, what are the Marans doing for the holidays?" Just hanging with family, and thankfully most of our family is around here, and we have some family coming in from out of town as well that's going to be all hanging out. And especially now with our daughter, it kind of makes sense to just host everyone at our house. Since that's kind of, it just makes it easier being the hub and having an open door kind of thing, and just having everyone come when they can. So we'll just be doing that here, and should be fun. It's every year it gets more and more fun, having a kid. Anyone who's had a kid and can relate with, it's so much fun, the holidays with them. And with our daughter now, she's getting older to the point where she's able to appreciate stuff more. She knows what's going on, a lot more than she did when she was, a baby. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for the holidays here, and hope you guys all have some fun holiday plans as well. It's always a very fun time of the year, especially I'm a nostalgic personality and stuff. It's just one of those things that Christmas just kind of hits all the right notes for me. So it's always been my favorite holiday. And Ace of Spades says, if YouTube were to plateau, is there a way you could port your channel to multi-platform, post on X, TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, etc.? Well, as far as, I think YouTube itself, I'm not concerned about their platform. I think that it's, everything that's come up to try and compete, I think at the end of the day, YouTube is still the best place for a creator, just because they pay the most. To be totally honest, they pay the most, and they're innovating, and they're really, all the new stuff we've seen even in the past year with user experiences for YouTube, with having the ambient mode where you have whatever you're watching, the light from the video, they can kind of judge that it kind of bleeds into outside of the video frame. They're just cool little things. The subscribe button lighting up whenever you mention subscribe in a video now, and the way the player has so many adjustability things. They're innovating in more ways than other companies can, because they just have the audience there. And I think it's gonna be a long time before that ever changes. I think TikTok, is a competitor, but I think it's also, just no one pays well. That's the bottom line. If you're doing this as a career like I am, if you're doing it for fun, sure, you can build up a following way quicker on TikTok, especially. But if you want to make good money on TikTok, you got to be selling ads. You got to be shouting out a brand every time you do anything in a video. And that gets annoying for people if you're just always being a constant commercial. And, obviously different niches of content can kind of make that more viable than others. If you're doing shopping hauls, it can be great. But if you're, just relying on ad revenue, and you just want to be a creative person that's just posting fun stuff and then letting the monetization be handled by the platform, YouTube is still the best way to do it. You just click monetize and it handles it. And TikTok pays, but it's horrible to pay rate for. The amount of views. The people I've talked to, I can't remember the amount of, but I think it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to quote the right amount, but I think people were saying like for a couple million views, they're making like $3,000 on TikTok, which, sure, if it's a low effort thing and it's extra $3,000 in your pocket for a little work, like fine. But again, if you're trying to do this as a career, you're trying to do this in a repeated fashion and trying to build an audience and make it an actual thing that you're taking seriously, it's just, it's not a lot of money for what is going to end up being a lot of work if you really are pouring your heart and soul into it. And so, it's just YouTube seems to be the best. But as far as, is there a way I could port my channel? I could port my channel to a lot of stuff. Obviously the vertical stuff's more limiting because everything I do is horizontal here. But if X were to all of a sudden be an amazing platform for creators from a monetization standpoint, obviously it'd be very easy to, just re-upload everything there. But I think, one of the other things too, especially for me with my channel being so old, that makes it hard is that, I can't replace the view counts. People go and search for Chrysler 300 SRT8 video. I have 1.4 million views on my video. Mine's going to rank really close to the top. And, you reset all those rankings if you go to another platform and you're starting from zero from a view standpoint. So there's some built-in stuff where the evergreen nature is always going to have more staying power on YouTube because of just the, legacy views, I guess you could say, just all that stuff continuing to get those videos ranked the highest, because even though they're old, they're just insane view counts. And so that's going to help, push them up. And so that's the kind of stuff that really, and when you're doing this as a creator, it adds up, because whenever you're on new platforms, it's always about what's the next thing you're posting. And people that do daily vlogs or do very in the moment content, it expires super fast. And so it just dies. And the weekly updates are an example of this, where no one watches them after a week. Whereas the car reviews, I'm still making $1 a day from my 350Z video. And you do enough of those, and that adds up. And so over 10 years, that's the only way. My views are horrible these days. You can look on Social Blade and see the amount of views and how I've dropped off. I peaked in 2018, and it's been a long drop off since then. The only thing keeping me doing this, being the only way I'm able to afford still to do this, is the fact that people are still watching my 10-year-old 350Z video, because it's got 1.5 million views or whatever. And that helps me, I make $1 a day on that one. I make $1 a day on the 300 video. And, that adds up with, I mean, obviously that's not every video I've posted. I still have a lot of duds from 10 years ago as well. But some of those ones with staying power are the ones that keep me afloat, so that even though my new stuff isn't knocking it out of the park or even doing decent half the time, there's horrible view counts on most of them these days. But, the old stuff kind of gives me that life support, to keep going with the new stuff and hope that some of these new videos actually catch on and take on a life of their own someday. But for me, it's always been a long-term strategy. And so, long answer, I apologize, but so porting over to that stuff would reset all of that. And again, put the focus on like, what's the new thing you posted today? Because if you didn't post anything new, you're not getting paid, because with those platforms, that's all it's about typically. So we'll see how YouTube evolves and what happens. There's all kinds of things. I mean, if YouTube one day pulls a TikTok kind of algorithm change where they say any kind of dangerous activity in a car, it was immediate demonetization or immediate shadow ban like TikTok does. You can't really post accelerations on TikTok or anything like that because it usually just ends up getting blocked by the algorithm for dangerous content. If one day YouTube thinks that 0 to 60 runs are dangerous content, I could be put out of business tomorrow and I'm going to be scrambling for a job. So that's one of the downsides of this is if there's a policy change that doesn't go in my favor, I could be, at square one and it could be, not fun. So there's definitely some stuff there that, I don't love about being dependent on a platform. And that's why I've tried to diversify out with, the member stuff and with, live streams and all these different things to kind of get out of just doing, car review videos. But, it's the Wild West still. Who knows what's going to end up having staying power and what's going to end up happening down the road. But Jazz says, Matt, will you review a 2024 Sonata if offered one from Hyundai? Absolutely. I've been hoping to get one as a press vehicle. I don't believe they're going to do a media drive for that. I could be wrong, but I definitely want to do the new Sonata when that comes out. I think the styling is great, and any kind of new refresh like that sells a lot, I'm always going to cover because it's going to get views. Again, more of that long-term just buyers looking for Sonata, coverage is, always going to make it worthwhile. So I'll be covering that one for sure. And Mike says, Matt, do you think Toyota will kill the regular Highlander and introduce an LE trim on Grand Highlander? I think they're kind of in a tricky position because I feel like they probably don't want to kill regular Highlander just from a legacy standpoint there, as far as, it's got so much equity in that Highlander name. And obviously they've used some of that with the Grand Highlander. But I think what you could see potentially, I mean, we have Crown Signia being a 2-row, bigger midsize, but what I could potentially envision for next gen Highlander is maybe taking it down market, doing a cheaper 2-row thing that's bigger than RAV4, maybe different than Crown Signia in some way. They kind of have really put themselves in a tough position with Crown Signia, but like, it's tough. You could push Grand Highlander up market more, but then it turns into TX, which is, then they step on those toes. So I don't know. That's a great question, Mike. I don't know where they go with Highlander. I mean, Toyota told me, when I asked them that question, like, why would I recommend a Highlander to someone when there's the Grand Highlander now? And they're like, well, it's, it starts cheaper and it's for people who don't need as much space. And there's some people that might just be like, Grand Highlander is enormous. I don't want to be driving something that's, the size of a school bus. And that's fine. Highlander's a little bit shorter, and that can certainly have some appeal. So I think there's some of that. How much of that? I think sales numbers in the next year will really, illustrate that for us here, as far as, are there that many people that still want a Highlander with the Grand Highlander in the picture now? And I think that will hopefully inform Toyota which way they should go. Because I think there's still a few more years in the Highlander left. I'm sure they're probably working on, if there's going to be a new thing, I'm sure they're already probably working on it, or at least in the, idea stages for that. But I would say, they're going to have to find some way to differentiate it if the sales numbers don't show that there's enough market for, again, something cheaper and smaller in the 3-row segment there. But it's tough. They've really packed them in as far as filling every niche here. So we'll see how they play. That'll be interesting. Two also says, a poem, Christmas is in the air while I'm here tied to a radiator. Kyle's in the back testing Raid Shadow Legends. Beth yelling at Matt, he forgot the milk again. Yep, that's appreciate the little Christmas poem there. And two says, talking hung on the radiator with care. Karate chop guy still tired, still tied to the chair. Trunk car guy stuffing the basement to the door. Cat droppings all over the floor. As I look at the twinkling of the Christmas lights, Matt comes down and yells, no heat for you all. Enjoy your night. You're hilarious too. You should start your own channel. Just do a comedy channel. I'd love to subscribe to a two Chang stand up. That would be great. Thanks for the poem too. That's you're very creative. I have to give you that. Jazz says regarding cars not available here, I wrote to Hyundai USA and asked them if I could special order a Hyundai Grandeur replacing the Azera, and not heard back. Yeah, the problem with that kind of stuff, Jazz, is that there's no. It's just to legalize a car here is an insane amount of money. And so it's it's just something that they're never going to be able to justify. They tried with the K900 and stuff like that, and just didn't pan out. So that's the problem. I'm sure they would love to charge. What they ended up doing, if they had to do that, I mean, they'd factor in the millions of dollars to crash test it, to legalize the engine and all that kind of stuff, and then pass that on to you, and then that would end up making it Rolls Royce money, I'm sure. So that's why they can't do that kind of stuff. Your best bet, if you really want something like that, is to try and import something with a 25-year roll, or move to Canada where it's a 15-year roll, I believe. You can get it sooner. But that stuff is just going to be unobtainium for a long time. Thanks for the link, Newt, to Harrison Autos for the Model X. And Double Strike says, hey, Matt, joining late this week. I hope you're well. Spent all day designing and 3D printing a custom phone mount for my car. Lots of learning along the way. That's fun. Awesome. Yeah, one of my close friends is really into 3D printing stuff as well. And it seems like a very fun hobby. It's really cool how, like, the Ford Maverick, you can 3D print your own accessories. They have like little universal mounts that you can use with 3D printers, and it's very cool. And Newt says, I heard TikTok is pretty inconsistent as well. Absolutely. And I've heard so many people that are like doing this professionally on TikTok, even like they will like delete and re-upload videos multiple times because the algorithm is just so fickle. It's not consistent, where it's like, you upload it 5 times, you're going to get 5 different results. It's not consistent with the algorithm. Whereas YouTube can still screw you for sure with the algorithm, but it seems like it's more logical with the way they push stuff. And I actually watched an interesting video about YouTube's algorithm in the past couple of weeks here, where they said that, like, the way that they design the algorithm is not so much to push videos to people, but instead they're relying on users to pull videos out of the algorithm. It's kind of flipped the other way, where like they don't want to push anything on anybody. They're just looking at what you're watching, and then you with your watch history and what you click on with the recommendations. I mean, they offer stuff to you, so I guess you're pushing it in that way, but they only push that stuff more if you're pulling it out of the algorithm. If you're clicking on those recommended videos, then that's you pulling the video out of the algorithm, saying, I want to watch this one. I want to watch this one. You're pulling through. I'm clicking with your choices. This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And then that informs the algorithm. Okay, well, this is what we want to offer to him, so that they keep pulling more and more videos. They want you to stay on YouTube, of course, as long as you possibly can. So they want you to keep pulling more. And so if you continue that pulling action of different videos, that's what influences the algorithm the most. And that's why recommended is really the bottom line. If you want to have a huge view video these days, you got to get it on the homepage. You got to get it on the recommended page. Subscribers means nothing anymore. This channel is a prime example. 445,000 subscribers, and sometimes I don't even get 100,000 impressions. That means out of 1/4 of my subscribers one-fourth of my subscribers are the only ones who even see the thumbnail. Like they don't even get it pushed to them. So it's all about just that algorithm. And I mean, there's some other factors, like if you watch a video all the way through, then that sends a strong signal like, hey, we should push this to more people. But it really comes down to what the users are pulling out, and that's what's going to influence that algorithm. And that's why really at the end of the day, most people it's really kind of silly to blame the algorithm, because the bottom line is just the video sucks. If it didn't suck, people would pull it out more, and that would kind of evolve itself for the most part. And so that's, it's just the bottom line is, you got to just know your audience. You got to just make videos people want to see, or at least clickbait them into stuff. That's the other way you can do it still, unfortunately. I see so much of that. It's insane the amount of clickbait stuff in the car world that's really popped up. There's been a couple of new channels in the like news reporting segment that are like not news at all, and it's like so clickbaity, but they get tons of views that I would have never dreamed of in my wildest dreams for the weekly updates these videos are getting. And it's like, it's unfortunate, the amount of time people waste on clickbait stuff, but people keep clicking them and keep supporting it. So it is what it is. But it's insane. Some of these stupid titles I see on these car news videos, it's just nuts. But anyway, moving on here. Austin says, cough Linus Tech Tips and their sponsors. And there's a lot that do that. And it's especially when you're running a big company like that, you got people to pay and stuff. That's one thing, at least with me, I've spared myself the stress of turning it into a full-blown business. It's just all on me. And, that's got its own pitfalls, but at least I don't have to worry about putting other people out of a job. It's just all on my own well-being. But Mike says, doesn't TikTok have a total bigger audience than YouTube though? I'm not sure about that. That's possible because I would assume, because I believe TikTok is available in China, right? And YouTube isn't. So that alone could maybe tip the scales in TikTok's favor. I'm not sure, because I think as far as like, I would think that in America there's more people that watch YouTube than TikTok, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it's I don't know that the number is there. But let me see. And Matt says, or Austin says, Matt needs a new catchphrase to please the algorithm gods. Yeah, maybe that would help. Trent Cargo says, from what I've seen, the tuner cars seem to have more views, definitely. And that was also the time period as well. A lot of those, they got the lion's share of those huge views, in those early days. But a lot of them is just, again, it's now affordable enthusiast stuff that people can actually buy for reasonable money, and so it's got a new appeal for that reason as well. And Steve says the SuperX fan made me happy with that review the other day. Yeah, the 2006 WRX. So it was fun to bring that back, but that's something that I definitely can't ever bring back, just if I want to keep doing new car reviews, because just the Subaru thing just implies bias, and it's just something you can't do if you want to be an unbiased car review channel to say, hey, I'm a Subaru fan, so it doesn't help. But I'm glad it didn't hurt me all those years, really, aside from just the manufacturers not wanting to work with me. But it's just amazing when I changed the channel name, the amount of opportunities that just opened wide open for me. It's kind of wild. SMD says, I'm glad the old stuff gives you that boost, Matt. And I know good things are coming for your channel in 2024, my brother. You deserve it. I appreciate that. I hope so. We'll just ride this fun ride as long as it lasts and see where it goes. But it's every year it gets harder, to be totally honest, as far as just, again, keeping up with competition, and there's always new people popping up that are more exciting and fresher and all that. And I'm an old face on this platform, and so it's, it's an uphill battle, but we'll see what happens. And SMDL says, hey man, can we get a shelf tour? I see books back there and I don't know what else. So I was just mentioning, I'm thinking about doing a member video about my diecast cars, but maybe I'll just do the video about everything back here and just maybe get a little more personal, if that's something you guys would like to see in a member video. But yeah, a bunch of cars. I'll save the tour, I guess, for the member video, because that's something I can do pretty easily. I'll just pick up my phone and just do a quick little walk around for 5 minutes someday here and walk through stuff. But it'd be fun to kind of do a little more of a personal, what are my favorite movies? What are my favorite books over there? And, what hats do I have? I have a little hat collection there from all the various press drives that I've been on. Sometimes we get a hat, and I've saved some of my favorites there. And just a bunch of random stuff. So that'd be a fun little video to walk through and show you guys some of that stuff. So I will make a note of that. It's something I'm going to do. Might be hard to do before the end of this year, but certainly, and January is crazy because I've got a bunch of trips and stuff, but I will do it. I will do it in the relatively near future, I promise, because that's a fun, easy little video. Maybe I'll even just post that up here if I get an extra, 15 minutes at some point on a weekend or something. I'll just, post that up real quick. Thanks for the question. But yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I am definitely going to try and do a member tour here of everything behind me at some point. And Mike says Highlander should be reclassified more like Sorento and Santa Fe, but I actually don't think Toyota can compete on cost and offering as much as the Koreans do for the money. It's really tough to beat the Koreans right now. They are consistently, some of Hyundai and Kia and Genesis are pretty consistently like some of the brands that I'm most impressed by, from a styling standpoint. We're all seeing all the crazy styling on all these things, all the bold chances they're taking, the technology, the just performance, the value. It's really tough to beat in a lot of ways. Again, they're not perfect either. They still have some engine issues from time to time with some of these vehicles, especially as they get later in their mileage. And there's they have some other things as well. But I think overall they're really some of the most impressive stuff. So it's gonna be tough. But I see what you mean about Highlander being kind of like a Sorento to the Tellurides and things like that, and that I think could be the way to do it going forward. Make it a smaller 3-row, or keep it the same size and just don't grow it, and just have them keep it a little bit fresher, and that's it. And let me see. So um, I see Hector saying, could you imagine Acura making an Integra Type S with superhanding all-wheel drive? I personally, I don't think that's going to happen. I think if you want an all-wheel drive Type S, they just assume you're going to get a TLX Type S. And I honestly think, for a very little upcharge, if you want something with all-wheel drive and you want something more comfortable, I know people are complaining about, no cooled seats in the Integra, no moonroof in the Integra, stuff like that. Or wait, does Integra have moonroof? I can't remember. Anyway, with the cooled seats in particular, that's one of those things. You just go up to the TLX. I think that's kind of how they structure that. And I know, you lose the hatchback, you lose, the manual, and there's some compromises there. But I think that Acura would worry about cannibalizing TLX sales if they offered the all-wheel drive on the Integra. Who knows? But I think they also assume everyone just wants to go up to an SUV if they want that stuff as well. So it's, the all-wheel drive sedan market is really a tough thing to crack. Some companies have had better luck than others, but I think it's, a lot of times it's not a super profitable thing. Like it seems like it would be. Like, Nissan offered the Altima with all-wheel drive a few years back, and I was like, oh man, people are gonna buy these like crazy. I haven't seen that many all-wheel drive Altimas out there. So it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know if everyone just doesn't know about it still or what, but it just seems like it's, obviously enthusiasts pay more attention with, a all-wheel drive Type S, but I think it just would be too much of an engineering hurdle for them because they don't have anything with that all-wheel drive system with that powertrain that does that much power. They'd have to upgrade everything, from the TLX and stuff, and then that would probably make it all-wheel drive or make it all automatic only. And I'm sure that they have, played out those hypotheticals and followed those roads to see where they lead. And it probably just came down to, what makes the most sense from a cost standpoint. If you did an all-wheel drive Integra and you had to do all that unique engineering, and then you force everyone into an automatic, it would be TLX Type S money anyway. Or if you had to then go back and upgrade the manual to handle the all-wheel drive system and all that, then it'd be probably more expensive than TLX. So it probably gets to a point where price just would price it out of competitiveness for people. Everyone wants this stuff if it was a free option or if it was $1,000 extra, but it's like the R&D work to make that happen would be so much more that it probably is cost prohibitive. And that's usually what kills a lot of fun things like that. Is it's just there's 5 people that really want that, and that's it. We see this even with V6 Camry when that was a thing. And I asked them back when the Camry all-wheel drive first came out, why don't you have a Camry all-wheel drive V6? Because 5 people would buy them. They said, I think the take rate for V6 Camry even a few years back was like 7% of Camry sales or V6, and that was like in 2020, I think. Nowadays, it might even be less, especially since they're harder to get now. But I think that's why we see with new Camry, no V6, because no one was buying it. And then, so if you had 7% of front-wheel drive people buying V6 Camry, and then you add an all-wheel drive, I mean, you're talking really thin pieces of the pie for stuff that costs money to, implement. And that's why we don't see that kind of stuff. And let me see. I see Sean's thanking Kyle for the membership there. And SMD says, I Googled Harrison Auto Sales and it's 35 hours away from me driving. That's unfortunate. I think they ship, but obviously not ideal either. And Austin says, hey man, not sure if you were active on Reddit or not, but maybe you could raise awareness of your channel on Our Cars. I think I talked about this a little bit last week. Our Cars hates my guts, at least previously they did. So they are very, I haven't been on there in a while. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's gotten a little less toxic than what it was the last time I was on there, but it seems like there's a few channels that they all really like. And then every other channel that anyone offers up gets shouted down. And there's been a few times I've seen where people will be like, hey, like, I really like this Matt Moran video. And then people just like downvote it or whatever, and it just doesn't get any traction. So I think it's a lot of people on there got really upset whenever I did my fundraising thing for the EcoBoost 10 years ago, and are like still think I'm just like a piece of garbage for that. And so as a result, Our Cars has always, in general, not been a fan of me. So I kind of gave up on that a long time ago. It's a good idea to try and raise awareness because there's a huge audience on there. I thought about trying to like redeem myself on Our Cars a while back by just doing an Ask Me Anything and just being brutally honest about, everyone, if anyone had objections or just didn't like the channel for whatever reason. I've seen a lot of complaints. People have said, oh, if I've seen one of his videos, I've seen all of them. They're all the same, blah, blah, blah. And like, the reaction gets old for some people and things like that, which, are understandable complaints. There's some of that stuff, that I think some people don't like, but I think I'd like to someday, do an Ask Me Anything on our cars and just, let myself get roasted on there, and, just at least it would raise awareness. And if I get roasted, then so be it. But it would be kind of a learning experience of, what are some of the other negative things out there that, maybe I could address, maybe change some people's opinions. Although I'm sure that's usually a losing game with anything in life, trying to change anyone's opinion on anything. Once people have their opinion made up, good luck changing that. But, it'd be something I'd like to try to redeem myself on there, because I don't think I'm a horrible person. I don't think that the videos are terrible, obviously, but it's everyone likes something different, and certain personalities just don't, jive with others. And, it's one of those things I've kind of just made a peace with. So yeah, News says usually they don't have anything better to do with people liking to stir the pot on Reddit there for our cars. So, but anyway, we're coming up to 2 hours here, so I'm going to try and do the last couple of little member questions here. I apologize I didn't get to too many non-member questions, but I see SMD says the 2007 Impala SS 200,000 views. Nice to see that. Yeah, that was my best hit of this year, biggest surprise. But that was the best viewed video this year. That and the Chrysler 300C were my top two that really did great views, and then everything else, kind of was mediocre at best. But, it's been a fun year regardless. And, like I said, hopefully the channel does better at some point. And SMD says, will next Sunday being Christmas Eve affect the live stream next week? Yeah, I mentioned this in the beginning. For those who joined in a little later here, I'm hoping to do one next Saturday. Christmas Eve is just not going to be realistic for me to do a live stream. I'm going to be busy with Christmas festivities. And so, but I'm thinking Saturday night, possibly. I'm not 100% sure. So this could be the last live stream of the year, because I'm not going to be able to do one for New Year's, because I'm going to have some friends coming in from out of town I'll be hosting. So I won't be able to do one there for, I believe the Sunday is the 30th or 31st. I won't be able to do one then. So hopefully next week I will see you guys. If not, I will see you all on the live stream here in 2024. First week of January, we'll get back to these for sure. But yeah, so Saturday, hopefully that works for some people. We'll see. I'm sure it'll be kind of tough for some people to make still, but hopefully that'll work, and we'll be able to get on, even if it's maybe for a little bit of a shorter one or something. We'll have to see. I see Super Steve says, hey Matt, how long do you think it'll take for Chrysler to have good portfolio of cars again? It's weird, over 20 years ago, that if it would have been impossible to think Chrysler would just have one vehicle now. Yeah, it's they're saying 2025 for their SUV, and then beyond that, it seems like it's going to be a slow rollout. I think they're going to be kind of a pretty thin brand for couple of decades. I'm thinking maybe once everything's fully electric and everything's up to speed for Chrysler with their new plans, maybe by 2030 they'll have a decent lineup. That might even be a little too soon, honestly. It's going to be a while. And it's a shame how far they've kind of fallen, and the lack of attention that FCA and now Stellantis has kind of given them with, not getting all the same love for the 300 that the Charger had, all that kind of stuff. Just been a shame to see the way Chrysler's developed. And SLB says, since Toyota and BMW collaborated on the Supra, they should put that B58 with an X-Drive and a Camry. That would be fun. That would be wild. That'd be awesome. Two says, our car is toxic. No, if our cars is toxic, then the basement is a wasteland. Kyle, too, this is a wasteland. Yeah, I apologize for the basement accommodations there. And Tringar says, have a good week, everyone. And Austin says, have a great Christmas, everyone, just in case Matt can't do a live stream next week. Yeah, thanks, everyone, for being so friendly on here with everyone else, and for the gifting, and for all the hanging out. Thanks, for everyone, for taking time out of your Sunday night here to hang. It's always a blast hanging with all of you. And yeah, if I don't get to see you guys here on the live next week again, you'll see a year of end video, or end of year video from me here for the last weekly update of the year here. I'll be, kind of giving my farewell to the year and my top 10, my favorite reviews of the year and stuff. So stay tuned for that and my formal sign off. But for those of you here on the live, it's almost a different sub community here. I hope you all have a great holiday season here. Whatever holiday you celebrate, I hope it's a great one for you. And yeah, I'm excited to keep doing these in 2024. It's been a really fun year too, I have to say. Just doing the live streams here with you guys. It's been something we've been really, I did more of them. It used to be very sporadic, but doing these every week has been so much fun. I look forward to these every week. and it's awesome. It's like my own little cars and coffee, and hopefully some of you can feel the same way. It's kind of a fun way to just kind of chat about cars, get our minds off of everything else going on in the world, and just kind of have fun helping people decide on cars and just talking about all the new stuff out there. It's a blast. I appreciate the hearts and the love, and yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining in. Have a great week here, and yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one, whenever that ends up being. But take care.